Chapter 4871. The Lord of Heaven of 100 battles and the others circled around and attacked. As expected, their attacks were blocked by the array. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming and Yi Immortal had already exchanged more than a dozen blows. Both of them were giving it their all and unleashing their ultimate moves continuously. Both of them were greatly drained. But at this point, Lu Ming's advantage was obvious. He had completely gained the upper hand and was beginning to suppress Yi Immortal. Clang. A spear light pierced Yi Wuxia. However, Yi Wuxia relied on his peak source-grade armor to block the spear light. Lu Ming was indeed slightly stronger than Yi Immortal in terms of direct attack power. However, Yi Immortal had the advantage of a soul-grade armor. Lu Ming could not completely suppress Yi Immortal and cause him much damage. Boom, boom. Following that, the two of them exchanged a few more blows. Lu Ming seized the opportunity and blasted Yi Immortal with his spear. Of course, the attack power was still blocked by the armor on Yi Wuxia's body. However, Yi Wuxia's body was also sent flying and smashed into a mountain rock, shattering it. Damn it! Yi Immortal roared in his heart. Although he had blocked Lu Ming's attack with his armor and did not cause much damage to himself, he was still embarrassed. In the eyes of others, he was being crushed by Lu Ming. This was a huge blow to his prestige in front of so many heavenly human tribe cultivators. Who was he? He was the strongest patriarch in the history of the heavenly human tribe. But he was still defeated by Lu Ming even though his cultivation level was higher than Lu Ming's. It was really embarrassing. Lu Ming seized the opportunity and attacked Yi Immortal relentlessly. Yi Immortal roared in anger. The two of them continued to exchange blows. But after a few blows, Yi Immortal was sent flying by Lu Ming and crashed heavily into the ground. How could this be? In the surroundings, the heavenly humans' faces became deathly pale. Their bodies trembled as if they had suffered a great blow. In their hearts, the invincible patriarch Yi Immortal had actually been defeated in a single blow. Their faith had taken a heavy blow. This was even more unbearable than being suppressed themselves. Boom! Yi Immortal rushed up into the sky from the ground. His body was surging with a terrifying aura. He looked at Lu Ming with a ferocious expression. How many years had it been since the collapse of the great desolate continent and the beginning of the new epoch? However, he was humiliated by a young man. Unforgivable. However, he had lived for a long time after all. His mind was firm and he was astute, so he quickly calmed down. Go. A cold voice came from Yi Immortal's mouth. Today, he knew that he couldn't do anything to Lu Ming and the others. Although they had two 9-man array formations, Lu Ming's group had two people on the same level as him. Guimo wasn't at his peak right now. That was why the 9-man array formations were able to fight Guimo to a standstill. If Guimo was at his peak, the 9-man array formations might not be a match for him. If they continued to fight, they would be at a disadvantage. Upon hearing Yi Wuxia's command, the rest of the heavenly human tribe members rushed toward Yi Wuxia, including the two 9-man formations. They broke free from the bone demon's grasp and rushed toward Yi Wuxia. Lu Ming didn't stop them. Yi Immortal was watching him closely. If he wanted to make a move, Yi Immortal would definitely stop him. He knew that although he was stronger than Yi Immortal, there was a limit to his strength. It was almost impossible for him to cause much damage to Yi Immortal. Moreover, after exchanging so many blows, he had expended a lot of energy. If this continued, it wouldn't be good for him. It was impossible for him to keep Yi Immortal and the others here. He might as well let them leave. Soon, the heavenly humans gathered behind Yi Immortal and slowly retreated. Before long, they had completely disappeared from Lu Ming's sight. Dandan and the others heaved a sigh of relief. It had been really dangerous just now. Fortunately, Lu Ming had arrived in time. Let's go. Let's leave this place first. Lu Ming said as he headed in another direction with Xian Yanqing and the others. The battle just now had caused a huge commotion. They were afraid that it would attract the primordial light tribe. Before long, they arrived at the other side of the mountain range. There was a huge crack here that extended all the way into the depths of the mountain range. Dense purplish gold paradise divine light constantly seeped out of the crack. Lu Ming and the others found a secluded place to rest at the edge of the crack. Dandan set up a concealment array formation that enveloped Lu Ming and the others. It was as if they had disappeared from their original spot. The others could not see Lu Ming and the others at all. After that, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Qiu Qiu, Dandan and the others sat down cross-legged and began to recover. In less than half a day, Lu Ming and the others had recovered to their peak condition. However, they did not leave. Instead, they stood guard here. Rather than wander around, it was safer to stay here. If they wandered around, they would easily encounter the primordial light tribe. If they stayed here, there was a chance that treasures would fly out of the crack. Moreover, now was not the time to enter the crack. They could only enter when the paradise divine light seeped out of the crack. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. They had indeed gained something by standing guard here. Every time there was a tremor, treasures would fly out of the crack. Of course, most of them were desolate crystals, which were immortal stones. However, they had also obtained an immortal crystal. They now had dozens of immortal crystals in their hands. These immortal crystals were good stuff. They contained origin imprints and were very useful to origin realm existences. Although they could not be compared to origin-grade divine herbs, they were still supreme treasures. During this period of time, the primordial light tribe had searched almost all the surrounding mountains and obtained some treasures. They had also entered the mountain that Lu Ming and the others had first entered and saw the 4 statues. However, the 4 statues did not react to the primordial light tribe at all. In another direction, the heavenly human tribe and the quasi-saint tribe had gathered together. The reason they had gathered together was to join forces against the primordial light tribe. Now, both the heavenly human tribe and the quasi-saint tribe had 5,000 to 6,000 people. In total, there were more than 10,000 people. During this period of time, Yuan Baji had also led people to attack the quasi-saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe. However, after a great battle, both sides had suffered losses. The primordial light tribe did not have much of an advantage. The primordial light tribe had the strongest Lord of Heaven. Although there were more powerhouses at the level of the top Lord of Heaven, the quasi-saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe were not inferior to each other. The quasi-saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe had won. As for the quasi-saint tribe, their foundation was very deep and they had mastered many joint attack battle techniques. The heavenly human tribe also had 2 9-man joint attack formations. This kind of strength was already very strong and was not much weaker than the primordial light tribe. After this battle, the primordial light tribe did not continue to attack the quasi-saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe. If the primordial light tribe's strength could crush the quasi-saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe, they would naturally destroy the 2 tribes without any hesitation. However, when their strength was not much stronger, they hesitated. Chapter 4872. The primordial light race would have to think twice when they were not that strong. Once they fought, even if they could annihilate the celestial race and the quasi-saint race, they would suffer great losses. There were more than one living being in the Forbidden Lands. They were also competitors. If the primordial light race suffered great losses, how could they compete with the Zhongming race and the malevolent Yin race? Their most important goal was to find enough resources to awaken more of their people. As for annihilating the quasi-saint race, the celestial race, the heaven destroyer, and the evil demons, that was secondary. As long as enough of their people were awakened, it would be easy to annihilate the quasi-saint race, the celestial race, the heaven destroyer, and the evil demons. Therefore, the major forces formed a balance around the realm aura. The quasi-saint race and the celestial race occupied one area, while the primordial light race occupied another. Everyone was waiting for the heavenly abode divine light to overflow from the realm aura. Then, they would enter the depths of the realm aura to search for treasures. Now that the heavenly abode divine light was so dense, no one dared to enter. If they encountered a giant beast formed by the heavenly abode divine light, they would die. That kind of giant beast was too terrifying. A few days passed in the blink of an eye. Rumble. Suddenly, a violent rumble came from the depths of the realm. At the same time, the ground shook violently. The tremor was stronger than before. The entire mountain range was shaking violently. Heavenly abode divine light kept rushing out from the cracks. Moreover, the cracks kept extending forward, tearing the mountains in the deepest part of the mountain range apart. There were 3 mountains in the deepest part of the mountain range that were still intact. The formations on them were also intact. At this time, dazzling rays of light appeared on the 3 mountains. Formations emerged one after another to resist the tearing of the cracks. Crash! Suddenly, everyone saw that the top of one of the mountains collapsed due to the tremor, revealing a corner inside. There were several light balls among them. Within each ball of light, there was a piece of black armor. Bang! Suddenly, one of the balls of light shattered, and a piece of black armor flew out like a bolt of lightning. It was flying in the direction of the primordial light race. In the process of flying, the black armor emitted a powerful aura, as if it was an invincible expert. That's in source-level weapon. No, it's a top-level source-level weapon. Many people cried out in alarm. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Qiu Autumn Moon, Dandan, and the others' eyes shone brightly. This battle armor was actually a top-tier soul-grade divine weapon. Not only that, it was a defensive-type item. Such a treasure was simply too rare. It was more than 10 times more valuable than a top-tier source-grade divine weapon of the same grade. Lu Ming's current shortcoming was his defense. If he had a top-grade defensive divine weapon, he wouldn't have been in such a sorry state when he encountered Yuan Yu and the others. He wouldn't have suffered such heavy injuries. Even turning defeat into victory wouldn't have been impossible. A top-tier defensive source-grade divine weapon was simply too valuable. Unfortunately, this armor was flying in the direction of the Primordial Light Tribe. A few Primordial Light Tribe martialists had already flown over. One of the Guangxin royal emissaries shot out a beam of light and bound the battle sword tightly before handing it over to Yuan Baji. Ambassador Guangxin was Yuan Baji's subordinate. What a pity, what a pity! Whether it was the quasi-immortal tribe, the heavenly human tribe, or Lu Ming and the others, they all sighed in their hearts. This kind of treasure was something the heavenly human tribe, the heaven destroyer tribe, and even the quasi-immortal tribe desperately needed. Among the heavenly human tribe, Lu Ming only saw Yi Immortal and Yi Qiuxian possessing such a treasure. Of course, some Origin Realm martialists might have such a treasure, but most people didn't. Obtaining such a treasure would greatly increase one's battle prowess. Therefore, everyone's eyes were fixed on the few mountains in the depths of the meridian. Just now, they saw that there were several similar armors in the collapsed corner of the hall. And that was only a corner of the palace that had collapsed. Were there any other similar armors in the palace that had not collapsed? Were there any other treasures apart from the battle armors? Powerful chi refinement techniques from the previous era? Or a complete set of joint attack arrays? These were all unparalleled treasures. It seemed that there were many other incomparably precious treasures in the depths of the meridian apart from the divine herbs, immortal stones, and immortal crystals. Everyone rubbed their hands eagerly, waiting for the heavenly paradise light to dissipate completely. Maybe we can refine a treasure that can pass through the heavenly paradise light and enter the depths of the meridian first. At this moment, Dandan suddenly spoke. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Guimo, and the others' eyes lit up. Dandan, are you serious? Are you confident? Lu Ming asked. Of course, but we need the help of the space-time bubble. When the heavenly paradise light is not very dense, we can pass through it, Dandan said. However, Lu Ming and the others were still a little uncertain, because Dandan's eyes were shining as he stared at the few mountains in the depths of the meridian. The light of greed was almost tangible. Lu Ming was really worried that Dandan was taking the risk out of desperation because of his greed. But in the end, Lu Ming decided to give it a try. Among all the parties present, they were relatively the weakest. Needless to say, the primordial light race had 3 Guangxin royal envoys, including Yuan Jiuji and Yuan Baji. There were also some terrifying joint attack arrays, such as the 21-people joint attack array. The quasi-saint race and the heavenly human race had already joined forces. Both sides had 2 Guangxin royal envoys, and there were also many joint attack arrays. Lu Ming and the others did not have the slightest advantage in a head-on competition. However, if they could enter the meridian first, they would be able to seize the opportunity and obtain a lot of treasures. Lu Ming and the others decided to let Dandan and Bubble give it a try. Immediately, they gathered the materials that Dandan needed. Dandan and Bubble began to refine. The others continued to wait. Immortal stones and immortal crystals flew out of the cracks and intercepted them. Soon, another month had passed. During this month, the area shook even more violently. Many of the arrays in the depths of the meridian were torn apart. It was only a matter of time before those arrays were completely torn apart. In addition, the heavenly abode divine light under the meridian was also very diluted. The heavenly abode divine light that was overflowing now was much thinner. Of course, it was still very dangerous for all parties. However, there were already people who could not bear it anymore. For example, the 3 Guangqian royal envoys of the primordial light race had already started to move. They rushed into one of the cracks. Obviously, they wanted to take the risk and enter first to seize the opportunity. Seeing this, the people of the heavenly human race and the quasi-saint race also could not bear it. The quasi-saint race's expert, who was comparable to the Guangqian royal envoys, also rushed into one of the cracks. Chapter 4873. Then, on the heavenly human tribe's side, Immortal, who was covered in a suit of armor and covered in the perfect power of heaven, also rushed into a crack. All the experts who were comparable to the Guangqian royal envoys entered the meridian first, trying to seize the opportunity to seize the treasures. Lu Ming and the others were a little anxious. Dandan, are the treasures you refined ready? Lu Ming asked Dandan. Don't worry, it'll be ready soon, Dandan replied. Dandan's speed was fast, but in fact, it only took a day. A day later, Dandan refined 2 suits of armor. The armor was engraved with runes and was shrouded in the power of time and space. The aura of these suits is somewhat similar to the leap-crossing airship. Lu Ming took a closer look and found that the 2 suits of armor were somewhat similar to the leap-crossing airship. That's right. I refined them based on the leap-crossing airship and added the power of time and space. Given your and Gumo's strength, it shouldn't be a problem for you to wear these suits of armor and pass through the heavenly abode divine light. Dandan patted his chest and said, "Should?" Lu Ming looked at Dandan with distrust. Lu Ming really didn't trust this guy. I used the wrong word. It's not should, it's should. Are you still worried about me? Dandan raised her head, looking as if she was a master. Of course not. Lu Ming replied without hesitation. You, Dandan gritted his teeth and wanted to kick Lu Ming's face. Lu Ming didn't give him any face. Don't worry. If there's a problem, I'll take my head to see you. Dandan gritted his teeth and said. Lu Ming muttered in his heart, but in the end, he took a suit of armor. At the same time, Guimo also took a suit of armor and put it on. You guys wait for us here. Lu Ming looked at Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, and the others. After bidding farewell to them, he and Guimo rushed into a crack. Xian Yanqing and the others hid in the concealment array. As long as they didn't go out, they should be safe. Bush. Lu Ming and Guimo dashed into the fissure. Their figures kept flashing as they avoided the heavenly abode divine lights. Although they had the armor refined by Dandan and Dandan's words could penetrate the heavenly divine light that was not very rich, Lu Ming and Bone Demon were not very confident. It was best to avoid it if possible. The 2 of them were extremely fast. Their figures flickered continuously as they charged towards the bottom of the crack. They dodged over a dozen heavenly abode divine lights in succession. But in the next moment, heavenly abode divine light and the heavenly abode. This heavenly abode divine light covered an extremely wide area. There was no way to dodge it, and one could only face it head-on. Charge! Lu Ming and Gumo's power surged as they activated the armor made by Dandan and Bubbles, and rushed towards the heavenly abode divine light. Crash! The heavenly abode divine light hit the 2 of them, producing a crash. However, to Lu Ming's surprise, the impact wasn't very strong. The armor on his body glowed and produced a strange power. This strange power blocked the heavenly abode divine light. In addition, the space-time power on the armor also produced a very good isolation effect, blocking the heavenly abode divine light. It's really useful. Dandan is finally reliable for a few times. Lu Ming was delighted. Of course, this was just his habitual thought. Speaking of which, Dandan had become quite reliable ever since he came back from the Myriad Transformations ruins. Many times, it was thanks to Dandan's help that he was able to avert danger. However, Dandan didn't leave a good impression on people in the past. Therefore, many people subconsciously felt that Dandan wasn't very reliable. It was unknown how Dandan would feel if he knew Lu Ming's thoughts. Soon, Lu Ming and Guemo rushed through the heavenly abode divine light. The consumption of their energy was minimal. Not bad, not bad. This armor is really good. Lu Ming, this way we can move freely under the heavenly abode divine light. We just have to avoid the particularly strong heavenly abode divine light. Guemo transmitted his voice to Lu Ming. He was also quite excited. The Guangxian royal envoy of the primordial light race, the heavenly human race, and the quasi-sage race's elites definitely wouldn't have an easy time facing the heavenly abode divine light. Even if they had entered a day earlier, their speed would still be far inferior to theirs. The two of them accelerated and rushed downwards. This heavenly abode divine light vein was very large and very deep. The two of them went downwards for hundreds of thousands of miles before reaching the deepest part of the crack. Divine medicine. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He saw several stalks of divine medicine growing on a cliff. Lu Ming's figure flashed and appeared near the divine medicine. It was a main-level divine medicine. Although it was a main-level divine medicine, its medicinal strength was incomparably dense, far above that of an ordinary main-level divine medicine. Although it couldn't compare to the sky jade ginseng that Lu Ming and the others had obtained before, Lu Ming sensed for a moment and discovered that the medicinal strength of this main-level divine medicine was dozens of times greater than that of an ordinary main-level divine medicine. This was because the energy in the depths of the Qi meridian was too dense. These main-level divine medicines had absorbed such dense energy over the years. The medicinal strength accumulated was simply too dense. Lu Ming waved his hand, controlling the taboo power. He plucked a few main-level divine medicines and stored them in the Great Desolation Ring. They urgently needed this kind of main-level divine medicine. Whether it was Lu Ming, Ling Yue, Dandan, or Bubbles, they all needed it to cultivate. After that, they would be able to discover main-level divine medicines from time to time. Every main-level divine medicine, no matter what type it was, had medicinal strength that was far above the main-level divine medicine outside. In just over an hour, he had obtained dozens of these main-level divine medicines. At this time, they had also landed at the bottom of the crevice. Great Desolation Crystal? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. At the bottom of the crevice, there were densely packed Great Desolation Crystals. These Great Desolation Crystals were embedded in the cliff. It was unknown how fast they were. Unfortunately, it wasn't like the Qi meridian from before, which was an entire vein. However, this was only a corner of the Qi meridian, so it was normal that it didn't form an entire vein. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon took out their divine weapons and dug. Digging one piece at a time was too slow. They cut off the rocks and kept them in their storage rings. When they had time, they would organize them one by one. It took them half a day to plunder all the Great Desolation Crystals here. Lu Ming estimated that there were at least 50 million of them. Don't think it's too little. One had to know that this was only a corner of the Qi meridian, and there was already so much content. Who knew how many Great Desolation Crystals were contained in the center of the Qi meridian? After plundering, the two of them followed the crevice and headed in another direction. In the blink of an eye, they had been in the crevice for several days. In these few days, their harvest was extremely great. There were already more than 100 main-level divine medicines. There were also more than 200 million Great Desolation Crystals. If the main-level divine medicine were to be exchanged for Great Desolation Crystals, in addition to the Great Desolation Crystals he had obtained, it would be close to 500 million. Source-level divine medicine. Suddenly, Lu Ming's heart beat wildly. Chapter 4874. Lu Ming's eyes lit up when he saw a source-level divine herb in front of him. It was a source-level divine herb that looked like a poria. A small divine herb was running around on top of the divine herb. A dense medicinal fragrance permeated the air. However, it wasn't a top-tier source-level divine herb. It was just an ordinary one. A top-tier source-level divine herb was like a living creature that could run around. However, even an ordinary source-level divine herb was priceless. Lu Ming only had one in his possession. Source-level divine herbs were extremely useful to reciprocity cultivators. They could rapidly increase their cultivation base. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon quickly arrived before the source-level divine herb. Nothing strange happened. Very soon, Lu Ming moved the source-level divine herb into his chaotic ring. There's a fork here. Which way should we go? The Bone Demon asked Lu Ming. That way, where the Primordial Light clan resides. Lu Ming looked to the left. That was where the Primordial Light clan resided. Lu Ming planned to head to where the Primordial Light clan resided. They had the armor refined by Dandan, so they might be able to get ahead of the Primordial Light clan and plunder all the treasures there. The two of them quickly headed to the left, plundering all the treasures they saw along the way. Be careful. There's someone up ahead. The Bone Demon suddenly whispered. The Bone Demon's spiritual senses were extremely sharp, so he could sense that there was someone up ahead. This place was filled with the heavenly paradise light. Ordinary people's spiritual senses would be greatly affected. Once they were far away, their spiritual senses would be greatly affected. However, the Bone Demon was a reciprocity cultivator at his peak. His spiritual senses were extremely sharp, so even if they were affected, they would still be much stronger than ordinary people at the same level. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon quickly stopped and found a hidden place to hide. Then, they carefully peered in a certain direction. On one of the cliffs, there was a cave, and inside the cave, there were 3 figures. They were the 3 Guangqian royal envoys of the Primordial Light clan. 2 of them were standing. One of them was sitting cross-legged, as if he was healing himself. One could see that there was a wound on that person's body that was flickering with purple-golden light. That was clearly a wound left behind by the heavenly paradise divine light. Evidently, the Guangqian royal envoy had been injured by the heavenly abode light and was currently recuperating. The heavenly paradise divine light in that area is denser than in other areas. The Primordial Light tribe should have been injured there. Bone Devil pointed in a direction and transmitted his voice to Lu Ming. Lu Ming nodded and said, that area might contain even more treasures. Let's go and take a look. They were wearing armor made by the Dandan. Even if the Primordial Light race's Guangqian emissary was injured there, they might not be injured. The 2 of them concealed their auras and carefully circled around from the other side. The members of the Primal Light tribe didn't sense them. Soon, the 2 of them approached the region and rushed in. Ooh! The Paradise God light continued to swirl around like a raging gale as it slammed into the 2 of them. However, it was blocked off by their armor. As such, the 2 of them didn't receive much of an impact. The 2 of them continued to venture deeper and deeper, traversing several hundred miles. Sure enough, they found a large number of chaos crystals, as well as many main-grade godly medicines. The 2 of them began to loot without restraint. The 2 spent a few days searching for the ancient desolation crystals and the primary godly herbs in the place. They even found 2 source-grade godly medicines. Of course, there was no lack of treasures like immortal crystals. What a great harvest! Lu Ming's face was full of smiles. Lu Ming didn't calculate the exact amount of chaos crystals and main-grade godly medicines that they had obtained over the past few days. However, he estimated that if all of them were exchanged for chaos crystals, they would be worth at least 1 billion. This was very shocking. One should know that the entire chaos crystal mine that they had obtained previously had only been worth a little more than 1 billion chaos crystals. However, this place was obviously not the core mine. It was really shocking that there were so many chaos crystals here. After looting everything, the 2 of them left in one direction, ready to explore other areas. Lu Ming, it's you! Suddenly, an angry roar was heard. Lu Ming took a look and sneered. The person who had shouted earlier was Yuan Yu. Yuan Yu and the 2 Guangqian imperial envoys under Yuan Jiuji had broken through the slightly thinner heavenly abode light and rushed here. As soon as they rushed in, they saw Lu Ming and Guemo. Then, they saw an empty space without even a single chaos crystal. There really wasn't a single chaos crystal left. Lu Ming and the others had looted everything, leaving nothing for them. They were furious, unable to restrain their anger. The three Guangxin imperial envoys rushed toward Lu Ming and Guimo in a frenzy. Light beams filled the sky like 3,000 sharp swords, stabbing toward Lu Ming and Guimo. "Let's go." Lu Ming and Guimo didn't fight. They rushed in another direction, planning to retreat first. With the same battle strength, 2 against 3, they were obviously at a disadvantage. Lu Ming could easily suppress one of them in a one-on-one battle, but he was definitely no match for 2 Guangxin imperial envoys. The 2 of them retreated while blocking the light beams. Die for me. This time, we can't let them escape." The Guangxin imperial envoys roared as their bodies turned into rays of light. The rays of light turned into different divine weapons, increasing their speed sharply as they charged toward Lu Ming and Guimo. Clang clang. Bone didn't care about defense. He fought 1 against 2 and blocked the attacks of the 2 Guangxin ambassadors. However, even though he managed to block the attacks of the 2 Guangxin ambassadors, he was still sent flying. He crashed into a dense heavenly paradise light. Fortunately, he was wearing the armor refined by Dandan and had amazing defense, so he successfully blocked the attack. On the other hand, Lu Ming easily blocked the attack of the 3rd Guangxin king. "Guimo, let's go to the place where the heavenly abode light is dense." Lu Ming came to Guimo's side and transmitted a message to him. Then, the 2 of them changed direction and rushed toward the direction where the heavenly abode light was dense. Coincidentally, a wave of dense heavenly abode light rushed over from that direction. Lu Ming and Guimo relied on the armor refined by Dandan to rush into the heavenly abode light. Although they also suffered a great impact, the armor successfully neutralized a portion of the impact. Coupled with their own strength, they were able to withstand the impact. However, the 3 Guangxin imperial envoys didn't have this ability. They simply didn't dare face such a dense heavenly abode light head-on. Thus, they hurriedly dodged. By the time they avoided the heavenly abode light, they had already lost track of Lu Ming and Guimo. Damn it. Yuan Yu and the other 2 Guangxin imperial envoys roared angrily. Lu Ming and Guimo had actually been able to ignore the heavenly abode light and come here before them to plunder all the treasures. Immortal stones, immortal crystals, and divine medicines were more precious than source-grade divine weapons and combined array formations. They didn't lack source-grade divine weapons or combined array formations. What they lacked were immortal stones, immortal crystals, and divine medicines, which contained rich energy and could help awaken more of their people. Chapter 4875. In the following period of time, Lu Ming and the Bone Demon were active under the crevice and obtained quite a few great desolation crystals and main-level divine medicines. At this time, the great desolation crystals and main-level divine medicines in the underground crevice had almost been completely plundered. This was because this was not the core of the Qi Meridian. The core of this Qi Meridian was at the bottom of the 3 mountain peaks in the deepest part. The great desolation crystal vein should be there. That place had not cracked open yet, and the heavenly passage divine light had not overflowed yet. It was still very terrifying, and they could not enter for the time being. Since it was not in the core area, the number of treasures it contained was naturally limited. Seeing that there was nothing left to gain, Lu Ming and the Bone Demon left the underground and returned to the surface to meet up with Xian Yanqing, Dandan, and the others. Then, Lu Ming and the Bone Demon took out their harvest from this trip. Everyone began to organize it, digging out the great desolation crystals from the rocks one by one. After calculating, the number of great desolation crystals was more than 1 billion. In addition to those main-level divine medicines, if exchanged for great desolation crystals, it would be equivalent to 500 to 600 million great desolation crystals. In total, it would be close to 2 billion great desolation crystals. This was a huge amount. However, to Lu Ming and the others, it was not a big number. Right now, Lu Ming, Ling Yue, Wan Xin, Dandan, Bubbles, and Tang Jun were all at the 8th level of the Divine Master Realm. Needless to say, Lu Ming needed at least 5 billion great desolation crystals for his breakthrough, or even more. As for Ling Yue, Wan Xin, Dandan, Bubbles, and Tang Jun, they were all peerless geniuses in the universe. The power they controlled was also not to be underestimated. The energy required to break through to the 9th level of the Divine Master realm was also extremely shocking. Although it could not compare to Lu Ming, it was not too far off. More than 1 billion or even more than 2 billion was normal. 2 billion Great Desolation crystals was at most enough for one person to break through. In the end, everyone discussed and decided to give these treasures to Dandan to break through first. Dandan majored in the Tao of rune formations. Relatively speaking, the resources needed for a breakthrough were slightly less. Of course, this was in comparison to Lu Ming and the others. To others, 2 billion might not be enough, but to Dandan, 2 billion should be enough. Also, along the way, Dandan's formation had played a huge role. He believed that it would still play a huge role in the future. Everyone agreed. Dandan did not hold back and began to refine the desolate gems and divine medicine to break through to the next realm. With the support of the formation, the speed of refining the desolate crystals increased greatly. However, refining so many desolate crystals still required a period of time. Not long after Lu Ming and the others came out, the Guangxin royal envoy of the primordial light race, the powerhouses of the quasi-immortal tribe, and the Yi Immortal also came out one after another. When Yuan Jiuji heard that Lu Ming had stolen their treasures again, he was unable to restrain his anger. He sent out a large number of people to search for Lu Ming and the others. Unfortunately, they could not find the concealment formations set up by Dandan. In the end, they naturally came up empty-handed. 9th brother, in this purple heaven grotto heaven, whether it is Lu Ming and the others, the quasi-immortal tribe or the heavenly human tribe, they have all obtained opportunities and become stronger and stronger. If this continues, it will be more and more disadvantageous for us to obtain more resources. We should let more of our people in. Yuan Baji and Yuan Jiuji discussed. I also have the same idea. With the resources we have obtained during this period, we will definitely be able to wake up many of our people. 7th brother should also have a lot of gains. Let's send him a message and let him send people to bring the resources back to the tribe. If 6th brother or 5th brother can wake up and enter Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven, Lu Ming, the quasi-immortal tribe, and the heavenly human tribe will all die at that time. Yuan Jiuji said with a sinister expression. Immediately, Yuan Baji and Yuan Jiuji sent out experts to take a large number of resources and left Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven on a flying boat. In Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven, one could leave at any time as long as they took the flying boat. Then they sent another message. The target was Yuan Baji and Yuan Jiuji's 7th brother, Yuan Qiji. On the other side, where the heavenly human tribe was. Some experts of the Yi Immortal and the heavenly human tribe were also discussing. Still haven't found any traces of the source divine tea? The Yi Immortal asked with a gloomy face. In the previous battle, he was actually suppressed by Lu Ming. Even with his deep thoughts, he had been in a bad mood during this period of time. Lu Ming's rise was too fast. Even he, an overlord who had lived for countless years, felt great pressure. He had to increase his strength as soon as possible to kill Lu Ming. And the source divine tea was a peerless treasure that could allow him to increase his strength quickly. This was because the origin divine tea could allow him to reach peak godly master quickly. Generally speaking, it was difficult to use treasures or resources to reach peak godly master from a 9th tier godly master. One had to slowly comprehend it, accumulate it, and achieve it naturally. No matter how talented one was, it was difficult to achieve it in one go. However, there were all sorts of strange things in the universe. The source divine tea could defy the heavens. It could allow a 9th tier godly master to quickly break through. However, the source divine tea was too rare and precious. It had only appeared in ancient records. No one had seen it in real life. To be more precise, the origin divine tea was a type of source divine medicine. A top-grade source divine medicine. It could move freely like a living being. Previously, in another ruin in Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven, the Yi Immortal had discovered the source divine tea by accident. He had followed the origin divine tea all the way here. That was right. The Yi Immortal had not come here on purpose. He had followed the origin divine tea here. Unfortunately, the origin divine tea had disappeared into the meridians as soon as it had arrived. The Yi Immortal had been sending people to search for it all this time. The heavenly human tribe members present all shook their heads, indicating that they had not found it. The Yi Immortal's face darkened even more. A terrifying aura emanated from his body, causing the other heavenly human tribe members to hold their breaths. At this moment, the Yi Immortal's expression changed. He waved his hand, and a voice transmission jade talisman appeared in his hand. Someone had sent him a message. He scanned it with his spiritual consciousness, and a look of joy appeared on his face. I found traces of the origin divine tea. Follow me. Remember to keep it a secret. Don't let the quasi-saint tribe or other factions find out. The Yi Immortal warned. Then, the Yi Immortal led a small number of heavenly human tribe members and left quietly. A day later, the Yi Immortal returned with the heavenly human tribe members. There was a look of joy on his face, but it was also a look of pity. He opened his palms, and 2 emerald green leaves appeared in his hands. These 2 leaves were not ordinary leaves at first glance. They were very mysterious and shone with a green luster. On the leaves, there were shadows that flickered continuously. They transformed into all kinds of wild beasts at one moment, and all kinds of divine weapons at other times. They were mysterious and unfathomable. There were thousands of changes, and they seemed to contain endless profundities. It's a pity that the origin divine tea escaped. We only managed to obtain 2 of its leaves. The Yi Immortal muttered. Chapter 4876. The 2 leaves in Yi Immortal's hand were the origin god tea leaves. But it's enough. 1 origin god tea leaf per person is enough to break through. Yi Immortal thought to himself. Then, he said, when Yi Qiuxin comes here, tell him to come see me. Understood. The others acknowledged the order and left. They knew that Yi Immortal was going to cultivate in seclusion. After they left, Yi Immortal brewed a pot of tea. He tossed a origin god tea leaf into the water. The tea's aroma immediately filled the air. A refreshing aroma filled the air. One would feel refreshed with just a whiff. Yi Immortal drank the tea in one gulp. Then he sat down cross-legged and began cultivating. Several days later, Yi Immortal stopped cultivating. He brewed another pot of tea. After drinking it, he continued cultivating. As time passed, the tremors underground grew more intense. A huge crack had appeared on the foremost peak of the 3 mountains in the depths of the Qi vein. Many of the formations on the mountain had been destroyed. Time passed quickly. It had been 3 months since Lu Ming emerged from the crack. Boom! A powerful aura emanated from Danden's body. After 3 months of cultivation, Danden's cultivation base had finally broken through. He was now a 9th-tier divine master. However, Danden had used up almost all of the desolate gems and main-grade divine herbs that Lu Ming had brought back. After Danden broke through, he joined forces with Bubbles to forge an armor that could withstand the heavenly paradise divine light. With their previous experience, Danden and Bubbles were already familiar with the process. Their forging speed increased greatly. In just 2 months, Danden and Bubbles had forged 8 pieces. Together with the 2 pieces that Lu Ming and Guimo had forged, they now had 1 each. How about it? Shall we enter the depths of the Qi vein together? We'll take all the desolate gems in the depths of the Qi vein. Danden's eyes shone as he stared at the depths of the Qi vein. The others also looked tempted. Previously, Lu Ming and Bone Demon had only circled around the Qi vein and had already obtained treasures worth 2 billion. Then, just how many resources would the primal crystal vein in the depths of this Qi vein contain? More than 10 billion? Once all of them were captured, they would have all the cultivation resources they needed. Lu Ming was also very tempted. Once he obtained all the resources in this meridian, he would definitely have the resources to break through to the 9th tier of the Divine Master realm, greatly increasing his battle prowess. At that time, he wouldn't even care about the Guangxin Imperial Envoy. After nearly half a year, the heavenly abode divine light in the depths of the meridians had overflowed a lot. Now, the heavenly abode divine light in the meridians had become much thinner. With the armor refined by Danden, they might be able to break in and plunder all the treasures inside first. Let's go and give it a try. If it really doesn't work, you can enter my desolate ring. Lu Ming reminded. Then, they put on their armor and prepared to enter the depths of the meridians through the crack. However, just as Lu Ming and the others were about to set off, an intense rumble came from the ground. A terrifying beast roar came from the depths of the meridians. That is, the expressions of Lu Ming and the others changed drastically. The beast roar coming from the depths of the meridians reminded them of the giant beast formed by the heavenly abode divine light. Previously, there was such a giant beast in the periphery. Would there be one in the depths of the meridians as well? They immediately stopped. What a joke! If they entered the depths of the meridians and encountered such a giant beast formed by the heavenly abode divine light, it would be very dangerous. They would have to hide in the desolate ring. Fortunately, they had set off a little later. Roar. Then beast roars came from the depths of the meridians. Dense heavenly abode divine light rushed out continuously. Suddenly, a giant beast rushed out from the depths of the meridians. Its terrifying aura covered the entire meridians. This giant beast was like a giant bird. Its entire body was purple gold. Without a doubt, it was formed by the heavenly abode divine light. These giant beasts formed by the heavenly abode divine light did not have much intelligence. Of course, it might be because there was not enough time. After a long time, they might develop intelligence. These giant beasts had been living in the depths of the meridians, absorbing the heavenly abode divine light to strengthen themselves. When the earth collapsed, they were alarmed. They instinctively rushed out and attacked crazily. This giant bird was no exception. After it flew out, it attacked crazily. Countless terrifying heavenly abode divine lights bombarded the various parts of the meridians. They also bombarded the formations of the 3 mountain peaks. Those formations exploded with dazzling light. They formed beams of terrifying light that fought against the heavenly abode divine light. The 3 mountain peaks in the depths of the meridians rumbled continuously. Powerful energy overflowed. Although the formations of the 3 mountain peaks were extremely terrifying, they were torn apart due to the collapse of the earth. They could not resist the giant bird formed by the heavenly abode divine light. They collapsed and exploded continuously. However, the body of the giant bird formed by the heavenly abode divine light was also shrinking rapidly. The light quickly dimmed. After about half an hour, the giant bird completely dissipated and turned into nothingness. However, the majority of the spirit formations on the 3 mountain peaks had been destroyed. Even if there were still spirit formations remaining, they were only a small portion. This was completely beyond the expectations of the various factions. Originally, according to their calculations, it would take at least a few months for the earth to collapse and tear apart the formations of the 3 mountain peaks. However, this was abruptly brought forward by a few months. At this moment, everyone's eyes were burning with passion. Let's go. Follow me to the mountain peaks. The treasures there are all ours. Yuan Jiuji and Yuan Baji gave the order. They led the experts of the primordial light race and rushed towards the 3 mountain peaks in the depths of the meridians. At the same time, the quasi-saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe also rushed towards the depths of the meridians. Let's go too. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and the others also moved and rushed towards the depths of the meridians. The sudden change disrupted Lu Ming and the others' plans. They originally planned to go underground and plunder the treasures in the depths of the meridians before going to the mountain peaks to compete for the treasures on the mountain peaks. But now they had to change their plans. The 3 mountain peaks in the depths of the meridians definitely contained precious treasures. Not to mention other things, just the source-level divine armors were priceless. They didn't want to miss out on it. They had to fight for it. The 3 mountain peaks in the depths of the meridians were arranged in a trapezoidal shape. The deeper they went, the more majestic the mountain peaks were. If they wanted to enter the second mountain peak, they had to pass through the first mountain peak. Every mountain peak was very majestic and occupied a very large area. Various forces were rushing towards the mountain peaks from different directions, rushing towards the peak of the mountain peaks. Lu Ming and the others were extremely fast. With Dandan around, they could easily avoid the remnants of the formations. Soon, they reached the top of the mountain. Roar, roar, roar. When Lu Ming and the others approached the top of the mountain, roars were heard. One by one, absolute Yin corpses appeared and charged towards Lu Ming and the others. Chapter 4877. There were actually many extreme Yin corpses on this mountain. At a glance, there were at least a few hundred extreme Yin corpses that charged towards Lu Ming and the others. Only a few of the surrounding mountains had extreme Yin corpses. It seemed like the three central mountains weren't that safe even if they didn't have an array. One could imagine that in the last era, these three mountains were the core of this meridian. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the others all took out their divine weapons with blue firestones and charged towards the extreme Yin corpses. The dozen or so extreme Yin corpses at the front had shocking strength. They were all comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. If they were in the primitive universe, a dozen or so existences comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven would definitely be a terrifying force. But now, Lu Ming and the others weren't afraid. Their divine weapons had blue firestones attached to them and could counter the extreme Yin corpses. Moreover, Lu Ming and the others were much stronger than before. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Lu Ming and the Bone Demon took the lead and charged towards the dozen or so extreme Yin corpses that were comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. The war god's spear vibrated and the spear light expanded. In an instant, 6 or 7 spear lights shot out and enveloped the 6 or 7 extreme Yin corpses that were comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. The sharp spear lights, together with the blue firestones, easily broke through the extreme Yin corpses' protective black energy and pierced through their bodies. Then, a blue flame enveloped the extreme Yin corpses and quickly extinguished the black energy on their bodies. On the other side, the Bone Demon was also powerful. He continuously slashed out with his purple gold battle axe and heavily injured the 6 or 7 extreme Yin corpses. Lu Ming and the others didn't tangle with the extreme Yin corpses for too long. With Lu Ming and the Bone Demon in the lead, they broke through the extreme Yin corpses' encirclement and charged towards the peak of the mountain. In front of them, an extreme Yin corpse appeared to block them. Luckily, there weren't any terrifying extreme Yin corpses here, such as the silver-eyed Yin corpse. Therefore, they couldn't stop Lu Ming and the others. After a while, Lu Ming and the others appeared in a huge hall. This palace was truly enormous. That was because there was only a single palace at the peak of the mountain. It was continuous and unending. Dandan sensed the palace and discovered that there was no spirit formation inside. Thus they rushed in. Strangely enough, when Lu Ming and his crew entered the palace, the absolute Yin corpses did not chase after them, but stopped outside the palace. Inside the palace, passages crisscrossed, forming a large number of houses. It looked like they were for people to live in. Unfortunately, nothing was left behind. They searched dozens of houses but found nothing. It wasn't until they arrived at a particularly spacious hall that they finally made a discovery. Several glowing orbs floated in the air in the hall. At a glance, there were at least 100 of them. Within each ball of light, there was a scroll. That's right, they were all scrolls, not divine weapons or treasures. However, the eyes of Lu Ming and the others suddenly lit up. Sometimes, the contents recorded in the scrolls were even more precious than divine weapons. For example, it recorded the various qi cultivation techniques of the previous era, or recorded the various rune formations, or even the way to refine divine weapons, or the way to refine joint attack formation carriers, etc. All of these were priceless treasures. All of them could increase the strength of a large force and become the most profound foundation. This was not something a single divine weapon could compare to. A single divine weapon could only benefit one person, but all of these could benefit almost everyone. For the development of a large force, it was extremely important. Sush. Lu Ming was the first to rush out. He grabbed at a ball of light with his hand. The defensive power of the ball of light was not strong. It was probably because too much time had passed that its power had weakened too much. Lu Ming grabbed the ball of light and easily grabbed a scroll in his hand. Lu Ming could not wait to open the scroll, wanting to see what was inside. However, after opening it, Lu Ming was dumbfounded. This was because Lu Ming did not recognize any of the words inside. It's all the words of the previous era, Lu Ming sighed in his heart. However, it did not matter. He could take the Heaven Destroyer back and let the experts study it. In every force, there were people who specialized in studying the words of the previous era. Over the countless years, by excavating the ancient books in the ruins of the universe and continuously studying them, almost all of the words of the previous era had been deciphered. Even the heavenly human tribe and the demon tribe were passed down from the previous era. Among them, there were words of the previous era that were passed down. It seems that after leaving the Purple Heaven Cave, I have to find time to learn the words of the previous era. Lu Ming thought in his heart. As his cultivation improved, he would come into contact with more things of the previous era. Therefore, it was very necessary to learn the words of the previous era. Otherwise, if he really encountered some fortuitous encounters, he might not be able to obtain them. With a thought, he put away the scroll. Then, Lu Ming pounced on another scroll. At the same time, Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon and the others also started to collect the scrolls. Soon, more than 30 scrolls fell into the hands of Lu Ming and the others. Someone's here. Be careful. Suddenly, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He felt that someone was rapidly approaching. Then, a terrifying aura surged like a tide, filling the hall with a gloomy aura. It's the people of the Yuan Guang tribe. Lu Ming looked around and realized that it was the people of the Yuan Guang tribe. Almost all of the elites of the Yuan Guang tribe had arrived. The leaders were Yuan Jiuji, Yuan Baji, and the 3 Guangqian royal ambassadors. In addition, there were some elites who had set up a joint attack formation. Lu Ming. As soon as he saw Lu Ming, Yuan Jiuji's eyes were filled with cold, murderous intent. He shouted, "Kill them! Kill! Kill! Kill!" The 3 Guangqian royal ambassadors were the fastest. Before Yuan Jiuji could finish his words, the 3 of them had already pounced on Lu Ming and the others. Their bodies glowed and combined with their divine weapons to launch a terrifying attack. Lu Ming and Guimo rushed out and used all their strength to block the attacks of the 3 Guangqian royal ambassadors. Boom! Boom! A few earth-shattering explosions erupted. Violent energy swept around the hall and directly pierced through it. Large holes were blasted open and debris flew everywhere. The hall used to be extremely sturdy. Unfortunately, too much time had passed and it had decayed. It could not withstand the attacks of Lu Ming and the others. Moreover, the powerful energy destroyed those balls of light. However, those scrolls, either because they were protected by the balls of light or because they were very hard, were not damaged. However, they flew in all directions amidst the surging energy. Lu Ming and Guimo retreated quickly. "Let's go!" Lu Ming shouted. He waved his hand and activated the ancient desolation ring. Xian Yanqing and the others were put into the ancient desolation ring. Then, he and Guimo flew in the same direction. The Yuan Guang tribe's combat strength was obviously above theirs. Moreover, the Yuan Guang tribe had not used their joint attack formation yet. Naturally, it was best to retreat. Chapter 4878. Chase after them. 9 Origin roared and gave the order to pursue while he led some people to grab the scrolls. However, there were still many scrolls that flew into the distance. The 3 Guangqian royal emissaries chased after Lu Ming and Guimo. However, the palaces here were crisscrossing and the terrain was complicated. The speed that the Yuanguang clan was so proud of could not be displayed. On the other hand, Lu Ming and Guimo dashed left and right. Soon, they completely shook off the 3 Guangqian royal emissaries. The 3 Guangqian royal emissaries had no choice but to leave. After shaking off the 3 Guangqian royal emissaries, Lu Ming and Guimo found a safe place and released Xian Yanqing, Qiu Moon, Dandan and the others. Those guys, when my cultivation reaches the peak of the Divine Master Realm, I will find a chance to kill them. Dandan said unhappily. Dandan was not bragging. He was good at formations. If his cultivation went further and reached the peak of the Divine Master Realm, he might be able to take care of the Guangqian royal emissaries if he spent more time and used some materials to set up formations. Let's go look at other places, Lu Ming said. Next, they continued to wander around the palaces. Unfortunately, they did not find anything. It seems that we can only rely on the last 2 mountains if we want to get the divine weapons, especially the last one, Dandan said. His eyes lit up when he mentioned the last mountain. The last mountain was the place where a corner of the palaces had collapsed and revealed a few balls of light that covered the soul-level divine weapons. Let's go to the second mountain, Lu Ming said. They left and went to the second mountain. Between this mountain peak and the second mountain peak, there was an enormous chain connecting them. It was also the only passage between the two mountain peaks. If they wanted to go to the second mountain, they had to pass through this iron chain. Because this area contained a no-fly zone, it was impossible to fly. If they wanted to go to the second mountain, they had to pass through this iron chain. However, when Lu Ming and the others approached the iron chain, they stopped. This was because the other end of the chain was blocked by someone. Yuanguang clan. That's right, they were still from the Primordial Light clan. They had already passed through the chains and were guarding the second mountain peak. It was clear that if someone were to pass through the chains, they would definitely suffer a terrifying attack. Damn it. The Primordial Light tribe is clearly trying to trap everyone here so that they can monopolize the treasures behind. Dandan growled. Should we charge over? An ominous glint flashed in the eyes of the myriad gods. They had a joint attack formation. If they attacked with all their might, they might be able to catch the other party off guard. No need. The celestial race and the quasi-saint race will definitely not give up. Let's find a place to hide first and wait for them to attack first. Lu Ming said. Good idea, we can just sit back and reap the benefits. Guillemot laughed. They found a secluded place to hide, and at the same time, they could see the situation at both ends of the chain. After a period of time, people from the quasi-saint tribe appeared in another direction. However, they didn't make a move. Instead, they hid somewhere like Lu Ming's group and waited for others to make a move. Then, people from the celestial race also appeared. They were also hiding somewhere. Ancestor, the Primordial Light tribe is blocking our way. What should we do? The Lord of Heaven asked. Wait for the others to make a move. Immortal said. Lu Ming's group, the celestial race, and the quasi-saint race all made the same choice. They all wanted to wait for others to make a move so that they could reap the benefits. Therefore, they waited for a few hours, but no one made a move. Boom! Suddenly, a violent explosion erupted from the second mountain peak. Rays of light shot into the sky and a palace exploded, sending debris flying everywhere. They could see a few huge figures fighting with an extreme Een corpse. These huge figures were the joint attack formation of the Primordial Light tribe. There were a total of 3 formations, and they were fighting against an extreme Een corpse. This extreme Een corpse was a silver-eyed Een corpse. It was very powerful and was constantly fighting against the 3 formations. That palace had been destroyed by the combined attack of the silver-eyed Een corpse and the array formation. That is, at this moment, the eyes of Lu Ming's group, the quasi-saint race, and the celestial race all lit up. There were 15 balls of light in that exploded palace. They could see that there was a saber in each of the 15 balls of light. Each saber was covered with dense runes. They were the carriers of the joint attack formation. That's right, they were the carriers of the joint attack formation. Moreover, they were the carriers of the joint attack formation of 15 people. The more carriers there were, the more people would set up the formation, and the more powerful and valuable it would be. The carriers of the joint attack formation of 15 people were left behind by the Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven. It was definitely a masterpiece and priceless. The hearts of Lu Ming's group, the celestial race, and the quasi-saint race all sped up. Especially Lu Ming's group and the celestial race. The Heaven Destroyer and the celestial race all lacked such a joint attack formation. If they could bring it back and send 15 peak divine masters to set up the formation, it would definitely be very powerful. It would greatly increase their battle strength. The Lord of Heaven would definitely be no match for it. However, the Primordial Light tribe was guarding there. How were they going to get there? I wanted to hide my strength first and make a move at the critical moment. It seems like I can't hide it anymore. Immortal muttered from the celestial race. Then he ordered, "You guys hide here first and wait for my news." After that, Immortal stepped out and walked toward the iron chain. Immortal is going to make a move. As soon as Immortal walked out, He was discovered by Lu Ming's group and the quasi-saint race. Yi Immortal actually dares to make a move alone. Where did he get his confidence from? Xian Yanqing said. Yi Immortal's battle strength was equivalent to a Guangqian Wang envoy. Even if he was stronger than an ordinary Guangqian Wang envoy with his divine weapon, there was a limit to it. As long as the other party attacked, 2 Guangqian Wang envoys would be enough to suppress Yi Immortal. Moreover, there were 3 Guangqian Wang envoys and many joint attack formations. Yi Immortal was no match for them at all. Yi Immortal actually dared to make a move? Lu Ming frowned. Based on his understanding of Yi Immortal was not an impulsive person. If he wanted to make a move, he would most likely be confident. Could it be that Yi Immortal's battle strength had skyrocketed in just a few months? A member of the celestial race? He's really courting death. Yuan Jiuji sneered. He originally wanted to wait for Lu Ming's group, but he didn't expect to meet a member of the celestial race. But it didn't matter. He would just kill him. Yi Immortal stepped forward and landed on the iron chain. Step by step, he walked forward unhurriedly. Soon, he would pass through the iron chain and arrive at the second mountain. Kill. Yuan Baji waved his hand. Sush, sush. The 2 Guangqian Wang envoys under Yuan Baji attacked Yi Immortal like 2 streaks of light. Their light beams were like thousands of sharp swords, piercing Yi Immortal into a beehive. Chapter 4879. Yi Immortal remained calm in the face of the fierce attacks from the 2 Guangqian royal envoys. Yi Immortal made his move when the thousands of strands of light neared him. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted from Yi Immortal's body, causing the void to explode and the world to lose its color. A battle sword had already appeared in his hand. Without a doubt, it was a top-notch source-grade divine weapon that was no weaker than Lu Ming's war god spear. Yi Immortal charged forward and slashed out a shocking sword light. As the sword light slashed out, the strands of light began to crumble. In an instant, thousands of strands of light exploded. The sword light did not stop and continued to slash at the 2 Guangqian royal envoys. The 2 Guangqian royal envoys were shocked. They turned into rays of light and used all their strength to block the attack. Boom! Boom! After 2 loud explosions, the 2 Guangqian royal envoys retreated like kites with their strings cut. The light on their bodies dimmed and their auras withered significantly. Light controller. This is the strength of a light controller. One of the Guangqian royal envoys shouted in shock. His eyes were filled with shock. The other members of the Yuanguang race, such as Yuan Jiuji and Yuan Baji, were also shocked. It was not just the Yuanguang race. Lu Ming and the rest of the quasi-saint race were also shocked. Peak Divine Master. Yi Immortal has broken through to the peak Divine Master level. Dandan exclaimed. How can it be so fast? Logically speaking, it would take a long time for one to break through from the 9th level of the Divine Master realm to the peak Divine Master level. Even an exceptional prodigy or a reincarnator like Yi Immortal wouldn't be able to do it so quickly. Tang Jun also exclaimed in shock. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She was also a reincarnator and had been at the origin realm in her past life. She knew how difficult it was to break through from the 9th level of the Divine Master realm to the peak Divine Master level. No matter how exceptional a prodigy was, it was impossible to break through in one go. Even a reincarnator was the same. Xian Yanqing was also a reincarnator. Her cultivation had reached the 9th level of the Divine Master realm nearly 1,000 years ago. However, she had not broken through after so many years. Yi Immortal, a peak Divine Master. Lu Ming whispered. He exchanged glances with Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Bone Devil, and the others. Their eyes were filled with solemnity. Yi Immortal was a 9th-tier Divine Master, and his fighting prowess was terrifying. He was equivalent to a Guangqian emissary, or even slightly stronger. In that case, Yi Immortal, who had broken through to the peak of the Divine Master level, was undoubtedly even more terrifying. Just now, with just one move, he was able to beat back and injure 2 Guangqian royal envoys. Bang! Bang! After defeating and injuring the 2 Guangqian princes, the Yi Immortal stepped on the iron chains and dashed toward the second mountain like a ray of light. Many people from the primordial light tribe were terrified as they retreated involuntarily. Get into formation. 21 people joint attack formation. 9 Origin roared. Suddenly, the figures of 21 experts beside him flickered and set up a joint attack formation. The formation transformed into a battle sword and slashed towards Ye Immortal. Heavenly sword, star explosion. Ye Immortal's deep voice rang out as he slashed out with his sword. A huge star appeared in the void. The huge star rapidly expanded and collided with the battle sword formed by the primordial light tribe's joint attack formation. Then, with a loud boom, it exploded, creating a terrifying destructive force. The battle sword formed by the joint attack formation trembled continuously and was sent flying backward. What terrifying power! Everyone's hearts pounded wildly. Ye Immortal's move was obviously an Genesis art. Moreover, it was a Genesis art that had never been used before. Its power was far greater than the Heavenly Sword, Moon's End and Sun's End. Obviously, the first two moves were more suited for group attacks, while this move was unparalleled in single-target attacks. It was very likely that Ye Immortal couldn't use it before and would only be able to use it after he broke through to the peak of the Divine Master level. To be able to beat back the 21 people joint attack formation of the Primordial Light Tribe, its power was beyond imagination. The Patriarch is invincible. The people of the Heavenly Human Tribe were so excited that they were trembling all over. Who in the world could compare to a Divine Master with such battle prowess? Ye Immortal seized the opportunity and rushed over the iron chains. Heavenly Sword, Moon's End. Ye Immortal's cold voice rang out as he slashed out with his sword. A fragmentary moonlight appeared in the void and scattered thousands of rays of light, enveloping all the people of the Primordial Light Tribe. Every ray of light was a terrifying sword light. All the experts of the Primordial Light Tribe felt their hair stand on end as they sensed a fatal threat. Their light beam hair danced wildly. More than 1,000 of the Primordial Light Tribe's light beam hair danced together and intertwined to form an impenetrable defensive wall. However, the cultivation levels of the Primordial Light Tribe members present were uneven, so the power of their light beam hair was also uneven. Some of the stronger ones were naturally able to block Ye Immortal's attack, but some of the weaker ones couldn't. Their light beam hair was pierced through, and their bodies were also pierced by the sword light. In an instant, at least 100 Primordial Light Tribe members were killed. The other Primordial Light Tribe members were terrified and frantically retreated. Ye Immortal is really decisive in his actions. He's really a formidable person. Even Lu Ming couldn't help but sigh. Although the Ye Immortal and the Ye Immortal had a hostile relationship, he had to admit that the Ye Immortal was a formidable enemy. He was decisive in his actions and had killed hundreds of Primordial Light Tribe members without hesitation. He had offended the Primordial Light Tribe by doing so. The Primordial Light Tribe would definitely seek revenge in the future. However, Lu Ming also understood that regardless of whether it was the Heavenly Human Tribe, the Quasi-Immortal Tribe, the Heaven Destroyer, or the demons, they were all hostile to the creatures of the Forbidden Lands. Even if they didn't offend them, they would sooner or later fight to the death. Even if you didn't kill them, they would still kill you. However, understanding the reason was one thing, and daring to act so decisively was another thing altogether. Most people would think that they were lucky and wouldn't dare to offend the creatures of the Forbidden Lands. After repelling the Primordial Light Tribe members, the Ye Immortal's figure flashed and rushed toward the 15 battle sabers. It was obvious that the Ye Immortal was targeting the 15 battle sabers. A 15-man joint attack array was very useful. If 15 peak almighty people were to set up the array, their combat strength would be comparable to a Guangxin Imperial envoys or even higher. In this era where the origin source didn't exist, an elite at the level of the Lord of Heaven was already considered a top-notch combat strength. They could influence the outcome of a battle, let alone a Guangxin Imperial envoy's combat strength. A Guangxin Imperial envoy was the backbone of a force and the core combat strength of a force. His value was self-evident. Otherwise, the Ye Immortal wouldn't have taken the risk of offending the Primordial Light Tribe and acted decisively. Stop him! Stop him! Set up the array! Set up the array! Yuan Jiuji and Yuan Baji shouted at the same time. The three 9-man joint attack arrays that had been battling the silver-eyed Yin-Yang corpse suddenly changed directions and attacked the Yi Immortal. Celestial Sword, Destruction of the Sun. The Yi Immortal slashed out with his sword again and a huge sun appeared in the sky, shining brightly. End of chapter. Chapter 4880. Yi Immortal had used a Genesis technique from the get-go. A great sun sprinkled down rays of light. Every ray of light was a ray of sword chi that was incomparably hot and capable of incinerating all things. This kind of attack was a large-scale attack, and it was an indiscriminate attack. In an instant, it enveloped the three 9-man joint attack formations and the silver-eyed Yin corpse. Clang, clang, clang. The three 9-man formations continuously clashed with the scorching sword chi. In the blink of an eye, they had clashed hundreds of times. In the end, 2 of the formations were knocked back and their light dimmed. The people who had set up the formations vomited blood and were seriously injured. There was also a formation that was attacked by 9 people, but it was even more miserable. It was directly destroyed, and the 9 people who set up the formation were pierced by thousands of sword lights and died. The carrier used by the 9-man formation wasn't damaged, and Yi Immortal put it away with a wave of his hand. The protective black chi around the silver-eyed Yin corpse was also pierced and hundreds of tiny sword holes appeared on its body. However, the silver-eyed Yin corpse's vitality was extremely tenacious and it didn't die. Black chi surged around its body and the sword holes rapidly healed. Damn it! Yuan Jiuji's eyes turned red. The 9-man formation just now was his subordinate. Even in the Primordial Light Clan, a 9-man formation carrier was very precious. It was a huge loss for them to fall into Yi Immortal's hands. In Yuan Jiuji's heart, Yi Immortal's hatred was second only to Lu Ming's. At this moment, Yi Wuxian was about to make a move and take away the 15 battle blades. But then, a giant sword light slashed towards him. It was the 21 people under Yuan Jiuji's command. Facing an array set up by 21 people, even the current Yi Wuxian had no choice but to focus on the battle. Boom! The 2 sides clashed again, shaking the entire chi channel. Space shook and the mountain quaked even more violently. At the same time, the 21 people under Yuan Baji's command flickered and set up a great formation. That's right, Yuan Baji also needed a 21-man joint attack formation. Multicolored light soared into the sky, condensing into a huge battle saber. His battle saber sliced through the air and headed straight for Yi Immortal. Boom! Yi Immortal attacked with all his might and clashed with the giant saber. Even Yi Xiao couldn't match up to the 2 21-man array formations. He couldn't help but retreat. The terrifying power directly destroyed the other palace below. That is, many people's eyes suddenly widened. That was because there were also balls of light in the destroyed palace. There were a total of 12 balls of light, and within each ball of light was a spear covered with runes. It was the carrier of another joint attack formation. This mountain was different from the previous one. On the mountain peak in front of them, there was a huge palace that was connected together. The palaces on the mountain peak were separated. There were at least a dozen of them scattered across the vast mountain peak. Could it be that in every palace, there was a carrier of a joint attack formation? Many people's hearts raced. If that was the case, it would be invaluable. Even the primordial light race, which had a rich heritage, was tempted. It was too difficult to refine a joint attack formation. Not only were the materials extremely rare, but the refining requirements were also shockingly high. If there were really so many joint attack formation carriers, it would be a huge treasure trove. Collect! Yi Wuxian roared and grabbed downwards with his palm. A gigantic claw was formed and enveloped the 12 spears below. As he channeled his energy, the light that enveloped the 12 spears exploded. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the 12 spears flew towards Yi Immortal and were collected by Yi Immortal. You're courting death. Kill him. Yuan Baji roared. The 2 21-man joint attack formations formed a saber and a sword respectively and attacked Yi Immortal. Both sides were in a pinnacle battle. Yuan Baji and his men appeared above the 15 battle sabers and began to collect them. Yuan Baji's face was a little gloomy. He also wanted the 15 battle saber formation carriers, but he had lost a lot of his men and couldn't compete with Yuan Baji. Go, follow me. Yuan Jioji gave a low cry and led his subordinates, charging towards another hall. Perhaps, each of the palaces here had a joint attack formation as a carrier. For the sake of the formation carriers, he couldn't care less about guarding the iron chain. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, several angry roars came from the other palaces on the mountain. Following that, a few burly figures rushed out from a few palaces. These figures were shrouded in thick black qi. They were fierce and had a monstrous aura. They were absolute Yin corpses, and they were all silver-eyed Yin corpses. There were actually so many silver-eyed Yin corpses on this mountain. There were already 4 of them, plus the previous one, there were 5 of them. Silver-eyed Yin corpses were equivalent to Guangxin royal envoys. Yuan Baji and Yuan Baji's faces changed drastically when so many of them appeared at once. Set up the formation and meet the enemy. Yuan Baji roared. Yuan Yu was the only Guangxin royal envoy left under his command. He definitely couldn't stop them and had to rely on the joint attack formation. At the same time, Yuan Baji also ordered his men to attack. A big chaotic battle broke out. Good opportunity. In the distance, Lu Ming and the others looked at each other, revealing a tempted look. Previously, they were all sitting on the mountain and watching the tigers fight. Now, it was time to make a move. They were very tempted by those joint attack formations. They were too important for the current Heaven Destroyer. Among the current major forces in the universe, there was no need to mention the creatures in the forbidden areas. They had existed since the last era and had a deep foundation. They themselves had a large number of joint attack formations. The quasi-saint race also had a deep foundation and also had joint attack formations. Even the celestial race had now obtained several sets of joint attack formations. On the Heaven Destroyer side, except for Lu Ming and the others who had obtained a set of joint attack formations, the others didn't know the situation. Perhaps they would gain nothing. If this continued, the gap between the strength of the Heaven Destroyer and the other forces would become bigger and bigger. The competition between forces relied on the overall strength. The overall strength must be strong. Relying on the strength of a few people, they could win for a while, but in the end, it wouldn't last long. For example, Lu Ming defeated his opponent, but the overall strength of the Heaven Destroyer wasn't strong enough and couldn't occupy the vast universe ruins. Only when the overall strength was strong could they occupy a larger territory and obtain more resources. Little Qing, Autumn Moon, Dandan, you guys enter the Chaos Ring first. Bone Demon and I will rush over. When the time is right, I will let you guys out. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to everyone and then let them enter the Chaos Ring first. He and Bone Demon's figure flashed and rushed towards the iron chain like 2 streams of light. Chapter 4881. As soon as Lu Ming and the Bone Demon appeared, the people of the Primordial Light tribe noticed them. However, they were busy dealing with the silver-eyed Yin corpse, so how could they have the strength to stop Lu Ming and the Bone Demon? Soon, Lu Ming and the Bone Demon passed through the iron chain and rushed in another direction, disappearing in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. Seeing Lu Ming and the Bone Demon rushing over, the people of the Quasi-Saint tribe also showed signs of interest. In the end, Song Qiong also rushed toward the iron chain with the expert comparable to the Guangxin Imperial Envoy and several joint attack formations. They also successfully passed through the iron chain and entered the second mountain peak. As for the others, they continued to stay on the first mountain peak. This was because the battle ahead was too intense. There were too many experts participating, and they were all at the level of the Guangxin Imperial Envoy. Even the strongest existence like the Lord of Heaven would find it difficult to intervene. Wouldn't the others be courting death if they went over? Lu Ming and the Bone Demon were very fast. They quickly left the battlefield and appeared in front of a palace hall. Lu Ming moved his mind and released Dandan from the primitive ring. There are no formations in the palace hall. Dandan sensed carefully and said. Then, Lu Ming, the Bone Demon, and Dandan restrained their auras and rushed into the palace hall. They arrived at the center of the palace hall unimpeded and found something. There were 12 light balls wrapped around 12 battle swords. Each sword was covered with runes. They were the carriers of joint attack formations. Lu Ming, the Bone Demon, and Dandan were overjoyed. In every palace here, there was indeed a carrier for a joint attack formation. Fortunately, there was no danger in this palace hall and they didn't encounter any extreme corpse. Without hesitation, the three of them immediately broke the light balls and put away the 12 sword-type joint attack formations. A 12-person joint attack formation could be brought back to the Heaven Destroyer. If 12 peak Divine Master experts were to set up the formation, the Heaven Destroyer would have the strength of a Guangxin Imperial Envoy. Even if it wasn't as strong, the difference wouldn't be too big. The three of them were excited. They walked around the palace hall and confirmed that there were no other joint attack formations. Then, they left and went to another palace hall. The mountain peak was very large. Even the top of the mountain was very wide. Dozens of palaces were scattered around the mountain peak, and there was still some distance between them. After a while, Lu Ming, the Bone Demon, and Dandan appeared in front of another palace hall. Dandan sensed for a moment, but there were still no fluctuations of the array formation. The three of them walked in without worry. Sure enough, at the center of the hall, they found another joint attack formation carrier. There were still 12 carriers. It seemed that there were very few carriers of formations like the 15 sabers from before. However, there was a figure sitting cross-legged below the 12 combined attack formation carriers. Suddenly, the figure turned its head and looked at Lu Ming and the others. Its silver eyes were filled with a cold and brutal aura. Its body was covered in black gas. It was a silver-eyed corpse. The silver-eyed corpse roared. The black gas around its body surged. It pounced at Lu Ming and the others. Its sharp claws tore through the air. Its power was terrifying. Dandan threw out a handful of blue firestone powder. The blue firestone powder stuck to the silver-eyed corpse. The blue firestone powder and the black gas around the silver-eyed corpse collided, creating a sizzling sound. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon had already charged out, attacking the silver-eyed corpse together. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon's battle strength were not weaker than the silver-eyed corpse. With the addition of the blue firestone divine weapon, they could restrain the silver-eyed corpse. No matter how strong the silver-eyed corpse's vitality was, it was not a match for Lu Ming and the Bone Demon. In just a few moves, the silver-eyed corpse was at a disadvantage. Lu Ming's spear pierced through its body. The energy of the blue firestone exploded from the silver-eyed corpse's body. However, the silver-eyed corpse was not ordinary. The blue firestone had a great restraining effect on ordinary extreme corpses, but it had a great effect on the silver-eyed corpse. The silver-eyed corpse's black gas exploded, constantly wearing down the flames of the blue firestone. Unfortunately, the Bone Demon's attack also arrived. The purple-gold battle axe almost chopped off the silver-eyed corpse's head, causing the silver-eyed corpse to be even more seriously injured. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon's attacks did not stop. They were like a storm, constantly attacking the silver-eyed corpse. Although the silver-eyed corpse resisted with all its might, after more than 10 moves, it was still unable to resist. Its body was cut into several pieces, and it was completely killed. After killing the silver-eyed corpse, they put away the carrier of the joint attack array. Then, the three of them quickly left this place and headed for another hall. However, this time, when the three of them approached the hall, a terrifying aura pressed down on them. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon were fine, but Dandan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His expression changed greatly, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, Lu Ming and the Bone Demon came to Dandan's aid in time, blocking most of the power of the aura. They also pulled Dandan back quickly. A figure appeared at the entrance of the hall. His eyes were like stars, and his killing intent was as cold as frost. Ye Immortal! The figure that appeared from the hall was Ye Immortal. Lu Ming, I've been waiting for you for so long. The Ye Immortal said coldly. It was obvious that the Ye Immortal had used some unknown method to escape from the primordial light race's experts and arrived at this hall in advance. He had taken away the joint attack array carrier in the hall and laid an ambush here. His goal was to lure Lu Ming and the others into the trap. It was obvious that he had seen Lu Ming and the Bone Demon arrive at this mountain. Get into formation. Lu Ming, the Bone Demon, used the joint attack array to block him. Dandan shouted. In the blink of an eye, Yi Wuxia appeared before Dandan had even finished speaking. Sword of the Heavens, Destruction of the Sun. The Yi Immortal used a terrifying Genesis technique the moment he attacked. A great sun appeared, and endless rays of light scattered down. Endless sword light pierced towards Lu Ming, the Bone Demon, and Dandan. Dandan, step back. Lu Ming shouted and stepped forward, shielding Dandan behind him. He thrust his palm forward, and a continent appeared above them. Then, the battle god's spear danced wildly in the air, forming an airtight shield. The Bone Demon also attacked with all his strength, forming layers of defense. His body rapidly grew in size, using his body to block the sword light that filled the sky. PFF PFF PFF. The continent was instantly pierced through. Countless tiny sword holes appeared on it, and then it crumbled. The scorching sword light didn't stop, and it collided with Lu Ming and the Bone Demon. A series of collisions rang out, and the two were sent flying back. The Bone Demon was slightly better off. The Yi Immortal didn't use a spirit attack, and he withstood it with his sturdy immortal body. Lu Ming wasn't as well off. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, and his face was pale. Several parts of his body had been pierced by the sword light. Get into formation, get into formation. Dandan roared. The Yi Immortal was too terrifying. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon were no match for him. Even escaping was a problem. Chapter 4882. When Yi Immortal was a 9th-tier divine master, his battle prowess was already at the level of a Guangqian royal envoy. Coupled with his top-tier divine weapons, his battle prowess was extremely terrifying. After breaking through to the peak divine master level, his battle prowess skyrocketed. There was already a huge gap between a 9th-tier divine master and a peak divine master. Even if Lu Ming and Guemo joined forces, there was still a huge gap between them and Yi Immortal. They had to set up a 10-man joint attack formation to put up a fight. Lu Ming didn't hesitate. With a wave of his hand, Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Bubbles, and the others appeared from the Chaos Ring. As soon as they appeared, they did not delay at all and immediately began to set up a formation. The formation of 10 people combined to form a huge figure. The figure wore black armor covered with barbs and held a halberd in its hand. It looked very ferocious. It was very different from the joint attack formation the heavenly human race had obtained. At the same time, Yi Immortal's attack arrived. This time, Yi Immortal used an even more terrifying Genesis technique. It was a single-target attack, Sword of the Heavens, Star Explosion. A giant star pressed down on Lu Ming and the others. The giant star constantly surged, containing a terrifying amount of energy. Lu Ming and the others controlled the black-armored warriors to quickly retreat. At the same time, they swung their halberds with all their might. Boom! The halberd struck the star, causing it to explode with destructive energy. The black-armored warriors' bodies shook violently as they frantically retreated. The people who had set up the formation, such as Dandan, Bubbles, and Ling Yue, paled and almost vomited blood. However, Yi Immortal's attack was finally blocked. What a powerful attack! Lu Ming and the others were secretly shocked. One must know that when they set up the joint attack formation, they could easily suppress Guangqian royal envoys like Yuan Yu. At that time, Dandan, Bubbles, and the others hadn't reached the 8th-tier divine master level yet. Their joint attack formation wasn't as powerful as it was now. Even though the combined attack array was stronger now, it still felt like it was no match for Yi Immortal. This showed just how strong the Yi Immortal was. Go! After blocking Yi Immortal's attack, Lu Ming and the others controlled the black-armored warriors to quickly retreat. Although the joint attack array could withstand Yi Immortal's attack, it was only temporary. The joint attack array consumed a lot of energy, especially for Dandan, Bubbles, Tang Jun, Ling Yue, and Wanshan. They were only 8th-level divine masters, so their energy would be quickly depleted. They had to shake off the Yi Immortal before they ran out of energy. You want to leave? Yi Immortal's eyes flashed with cold, murderous intent. His desire to kill Lu Ming was stronger than anyone else's. There was already a taboo sword ancestor. He did not want another Lu Ming to appear. The stronger the taboo sword ancestor was, the greater the impact it would have on the heavenly human tribe. Yi Immortal stepped forward and chased after Lu Ming and the others like a stream of light. He swung his sword, sending terrifying rays of sword light toward the black-armored warriors. However, these were not Genesis techniques. They were just ordinary attacks, so Lu Ming and the others easily blocked them. Even Yi Immortal couldn't use Genesis techniques all the time. Using Genesis techniques consumed a lot of energy. Even though Yi Immortal's control over his own energy had reached the pinnacle and he wouldn't waste any energy, he couldn't use Genesis techniques all the time. He would only use them when he was close enough. The two sides fought as they walked. In the blink of an eye, they were thousands of miles away. Sword of the Heavenly Human, Star Explosion. When the two sides were close enough, Yi Immortal used another terrifying Genesis technique. A star crashed toward the black-armored warriors, filled with terrifying destructive power. Lu Ming and the others could only meet the attack head-on. Boom! After the collision, the black-armored warriors were sent flying again. Their bodies were trembling, and the light on their bodies had dimmed significantly. This is bad. The hearts of Lu Ming and the others sank. If this continued, they wouldn't be able to last more than a few moves before Dandan and the others ran out of energy. Once their energy was depleted, the array would collapse. But from the looks of it, it would be very difficult for them to shake off Yi Immortal before the array collapsed. Let's enter the crack, Lu Ming transmitted to the others. They had to give it their all. He wanted to enter the crack and use the heavenly abode light in the depths of his chi channels to shake off Yi Immortal. Although it wasn't a good time to enter the depths of his chi channels, the heavenly abode light in the depths of his chi channels seemed to have gone berserk when the giant bird charged out. Dense heavenly abode light would rush out from the depths of his chi channels from time to time, making it very dangerous. However, they had the armor refined by Dandan, so they might be able to give it a try. Okay, let's do it. Xian Yanqing, Qiu Yu, Bone Devil, and the others agreed through voice transmission. Swish. The black-armored warriors charged towards one side of the mountain. There was a crack there. Yi Immortal quickly chased after them. After exchanging a few moves, Yi Immortal used another Genesis technique, Star Explosion. This time, Dandan, Tang Jun and the others violently vomited blood. The array was on the verge of collapsing, and they were in imminent danger. However, they weren't far from the crack at this time. They controlled the black-armored war envoy to charge into the crevice, then quickly rushed down the crevice. Trying to use the heavenly abode light to stop me? That's a good idea, but don't even think about it. Yi Immortal said coldly. Without any hesitation, he followed Lu Ming and the others into the crack. Not long after Lu Ming and the others charged into the crack, Lu Ming and the others could no longer maintain the array and were forced to scatter. With a wave of his hand, Lu Ming sent Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon and the others into the Chaos Ring, leaving only him and Guimo outside. Wearing the armor left by Dandan, they frantically charged forward. A gush of heavenly abode divine light rushed over. Lu Ming and Bone Demon passed through it. Behind them, Yi Immortal did not stop. He continuously slashed out with his sword, creating dazzling sword lights that forcefully split apart the heavenly abode light and followed closely behind Lu Ming and the others. Yi Immortal was very determined to kill Lu Ming and would not give up so easily. Even after several heavenly abode lights, Yi Immortal did not give up. This guy really doesn't want to live anymore, Guimo said unhappily. He was a little wary of Yi Immortal. Yi Immortal's soul attack was very terrifying and could be said to be Gumo's nemesis. Gumo's physical defense was completely useless. Let's charge towards the area with the densest heavenly abode light, Lu Ming said. The two of them descended with all their might, flying towards the area with the densest heavenly abode light. However, Yi Wuxia's strength was truly formidable. Unless it was an extremely dense heavenly paradise godlight, Yi Wuxia would be able to forcefully break through any ordinary dense heavenly paradise godlight. After chasing for a while, Yi Immortal still did not give up. However, with the interference of the heavenly abode light, it was not easy for him to catch up to Lu Ming and the others. Both parties maintained a certain distance. Suddenly, a beastly roar rang out, making Lu Ming's hair stand on end. Chapter 4883. The roar of a beast actually rang out from the depths of the meridian. It was truly frightening. They could not help but think of the huge beast condensed from the heavenly abode light. Was there another one below after the one that had flown out earlier? Not only did Lu Ming's expression change, but even Yi Immortal's expression changed. His body tensed up involuntarily. Another roar rang out. Following that, purplish-golden heavenly abode light surged towards Lu Ming's group. Within the dense heavenly abode light was a huge beast. The beast resembled a lion, but its entire body was purplish-golden. It seemed to be completely condensed from the heavenly abode light and gave off a terrifying aura. Lu Ming, Guimo, and Yi Immortal were all shocked. It really was a huge beast condensed from the heavenly abode light. Enter the Chaos Ring. Lu Ming roared. With a wave of his hand, he entered the Chaos Ring with Guimo. Only the Chaos Ring remained, floating in the air. Yi Immortal's eyes flickered. Now was the best time to take down Lu Ming. As long as he had the Chaos Ring in his hands, Lu Ming's group would be like turtles in a jar. However, the huge beast condensed from the heavenly abode light was rapidly charging over. The distance between the two parties was getting closer. Yi Immortal did not take action in the end. He turned around and quickly retreated. The battle prowess of a huge beast condensed from the heavenly abode light was just too terrifying. Even reciprocity experts would die if they came, let alone him. This was because these huge beasts were not living creatures. They were condensed from extremely dense heavenly abode light. There was no difference in their cultivation level, so they were not affected by the origin tribulation. Roar, roar. The huge beast constantly roared as the heavenly abode light constantly flashed. This made Yi Immortal even more shocked. He did not dare to stay any longer. After flying for a while, he madly charged upwards. Strangely enough, the giant beast only continued to roar and did not continue to pursue the Yi Immortal. After roaring for a while, the Yi Immortal was nowhere to be seen. The giant beast turned around and flew towards the Great Desolation Ring. Nestle were in trouble. Could it be that this paradise mythical beast has its eyes on the Great Desolate Ring? Lu Ming had been paying attention to the situation outside the Great Desolate Ring. At this moment, he could not help but howl in grief. Heavenly Abode Beast was a name that Lu Ming had given himself. He had originally thought that the Grotto Heaven Beast would chase after the Yi Immortal if he hid in the Chaos Ring. He had not expected that the Grotto Heaven Beast would not chase after the Yi Immortal. Instead, it had stopped to pay attention to the Chaos Ring. What a blunder! The Paradise Mythical Beast circled the Great Desolate Ring and observed it for a while. Then, its enormous body began to shrink rapidly. Eventually, the beast form of the Paradise God Beast began to morph rapidly into a plant form. This plant was only half a meter tall. Its roots had taken root in the void and were slithering around the Great Desolate Ring. Above the head of this plant, there was a small plant that looked exactly the same as this one. It was flying back and forth, and it was completely composed of energy. What the Lu Ming was tongue-tied and dumbfounded. How was this a Paradise God Beast? It was clearly a stalk of source-level divine herb. Moreover, it was an extremely high-grade source-level divine herb. It was a source-level divine herb that could run around. It turned out that the Paradise God Beast from before was just an illusion of this source-level divine herb to frighten people. Very good. Lu Ming's eyes shone with a fiery light. A source-level divine herb of this grade was priceless. He definitely could not miss it. He wondered if the Yi Immortal would be so angry that he would vomit blood if he knew about it. With a thought, Lu Ming immediately appeared outside the Great Desolate Ring. With a grab of his hand, a huge palm formed and grabbed at the source-level divine herb. However, the source-level divine herb was extremely fast. In a flash, it escaped from the range of Lu Ming's hand and flew towards the depths of the Qi channel as if it had been frightened. It was not easy to come across a stalk of high-level source-level divine medicine. How could Lu Ming miss it so easily? After putting away the ancient Desolation Ring, Lu Ming quickly chased after the UNG divine medicine. However, this source-level divine herb had obviously been nurtured in the depths of the Qi channel. It was very familiar with the terrain and was not afraid of the paradise godlight. It continued to rush towards the area where the paradise godlight was denser in an attempt to shake off Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming had the armor refined by Dandan and was also not afraid of the paradise godlight. He continued to chase after the source-level divine herb. The two of them quickly arrived at the deepest part of the Qi channel. They were almost at the bottom of the core mountain. At this time, Lu Ming released Dandan, Bubbles, and the Bone Demon. He realized that it was very difficult for him to catch up to the source-level divine herb alone. He could only rely on Dandan, Bubbles, and the others to help. Space-time force. Bubbles made a move and used space-time force. The space-time in the area was affected and the source-level divine herb's speed immediately decreased. Seal. Dandan also quickly made a move and shot out a dense array of runes. Seeing such a high-grade source-level divine herb, Dandan was more active than anyone else and used all his strength. Runes appeared in the surrounding void and intertwined to form a sealing array that was about to seal the source-level divine herb. At the same time, Lu Ming and the Bone Demon also made a move. Energy surged and formed a barrier that was about to completely seal the source-level divine herb. The source-level divine herb shone with a dazzling light as it tried to break free. However, it was futile against the combined efforts of Lu Ming's group of 4. In the end, this stock of source-level divine medicine was sealed by Dandan with an array formation. Lu Ming grabbed it and held it in his hand. The soul-grade divine medicine was like a sentient being. It kept twisting its needles, and the roots at its roots kept twisting. What a rich life essence! What a rich origin imprint! Lu Ming sized it up carefully and discovered that this stock of source-level divine medicine was no small matter. Lu Ming had also obtained source-level divine herbs in the past. In particular, he had obtained more than one source-level divine herb in the outskirts of the Qi channel. However, those source-level divine herbs paled in comparison to this one. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. A fortuitous encounter. It really is a fortuitous encounter. Not only is this origin-level god pill extremely useful to reciprocity experts, but it's also extremely beneficial to peak god masters. It can greatly increase the speed and chances of breaking through to reciprocity. Bone Demon stared at the source-level divine herb as the soul fire in his eye sockets constantly pulsed. Dandan's eyes shone as he stared at the source-level divine herb. He almost drooled. Ordinary source-level divine herbs were extremely useful to reciprocity experts, but they were useless to peak godmasters. This was because peak godmasters found it difficult to absorb the medicinal effects and origin imprints of source-level divine herbs. However, the best source-level divine herbs were different from ordinary source-level divine herbs. This sort of top-class source-level medicine was extremely easy to absorb and refine. Even a peak god lord would be able to refine it. Chapter 4884. The value of a top-grade source-level divine herb was immeasurable. It could greatly increase one's chances of breaking through to the origin source realm. It was extremely tempting to divine masters. No wonder Dandan had such an expression. Lu Ming was certain that the primordial light race had many such source-level divine herbs. He had seen more than one at the primordial sacred mountain. With a wave of his hand, Lu Ming stored the source-level divine herb in the chaos ring. Then he had Dandan undo the seal. He let it roam freely in the chaos ring. It was best to let such a top-grade source-level divine herb roam freely. After all, it couldn't run away from the chaos ring. There doesn't seem to be any danger in the channel of Qi. Why don't we take all the treasures here first and let them fight for the treasures above? Dandan said. That's what I was thinking. Lu Ming nodded. Then he released Xian Yanqing, Xiaoyu, and the others. They put on Dandan's armor and began to search the area. Soon they made a major discovery. Divine herbs, a large number of divine herbs. The environment in the deepest part of the channel of Qi was truly unique. There were large patches of divine herbs. Most of them were primary-grade divine herbs. Lu Ming and the others found at least a few hundred of them. Most of their medicinal power was much stronger than the primary-grade divine herbs outside. The energy contained in a few hundred primary-grade divine herbs was extremely shocking. Moreover, there were a few source-level divine herbs. Unfortunately, they didn't find any top-grade source-level divine herbs. A vein of primordial crystals. Ah, we're rich. We're rich. Dandan suddenly laughed. They continued to dig in an area where there were main-grade divine medicines. Finally, they saw a vein of primeval crystals. It looked similar to the vein they had found last time. Countless primordial crystals were embedded in a transparent rock. Lu Ming and the others began their arduous struggle. They peeled away the surrounding rocks, revealing a large vein of primordial crystals. A vein of primordial crystals as large as a mountain range appeared before them. Their eyes widened, and then they revealed looks of excitement. How many prehistoric crystals are there? Dandan was dumbfounded, his eyes shining. At the very least, there must be tens of billions of desolate crystals. Tang Jun also exclaimed in shock. Even though she was experienced and knowledgeable, she was still shocked to see so many desolation crystals at once. Lu Ming, the energy you need is finally enough. Xian Yanqing looked at Lu Ming and whispered, "Not bad, it's finally enough." Lu Ming nodded. He then activated the ancient desolation ring and put the entire ancient desolation crystal mineral vein into it. Lu Ming, what are you going to do next? Are you going to stay here and refine the desolation crystals to make a breakthrough, or are you going to fight for the treasures? Dandan asked Lu Ming. If they broke through their cultivation first, their battle prowess would definitely skyrocket. The desolation crystals here were enough for Lu Ming to make a breakthrough. The remaining desolation crystals would be enough for the others to make a breakthrough. Lu Ming's current cultivation was only at the 8th tier of the Divine Master realm, but his battle prowess was already so strong. Once he broke through to the 9th tier of the Divine Master realm, his battle prowess would undoubtedly be even more shocking. It would even be possible for him to rival the Yi Immortal. However, there was a problem. If Lu Ming wanted to make a breakthrough, he would have to refine at least 5 billion desolation crystals or even more. Even with Dandan's great heavenly refining origin formation, it would still take a long time to refine such a terrifying amount of desolation crystals. It would take at least a year. In such a long time, the treasures above would have already been snatched up by the Yi Immortal or the Primordial Light race. However, they were not strong enough to compete with the Yi Immortal or the Primordial Light race if they really encountered precious treasures. Lu Ming was also a little hesitant. Lu Ming thought for a while and said, "We should be directly above the core peak of the meridian. Let's go up along this path and see what's going on. If it doesn't work, we'll find a place to refine the desolation crystals and make a breakthrough." This was a compromise. They would go up first and see if they could succeed. If they could, they would decisively seize the treasures. If not, they would retreat. "All right, let's do that." The others nodded. Then the group flew up. There were no cracks above them. They planned to break through the rocks and enter the peak. Soon they encountered rocks. They took out their divine weapons and started to dig. However, they soon stopped because they encountered an obstacle. There was a black metal in the rocks. This black metal was very hard. Even if Lu Ming and the others tried their best to break it open, it would take a long time. "Is this black star iron?" Dandan muttered. "Yes, this is black star iron. It's a material that can be used to refine master-grade divine weapons. I didn't expect there to be so much here." Tang Jun nodded. They had just dug dozens of miles and found that it was all black star iron. The amount of black star iron here was shockingly large. However, they were pressed for time and didn't have that much time to dig. "Qiu, we're counting on you," Lu Ming said to Qiu. "No problem. Watch me." Qiu revealed 2 rows of sharp teeth. With a crunch, a large piece of black star iron was bitten off. Crunch, crunch, chunks of black star iron were bitten off. Lu Ming waved his hand and put it away. Since it was bitten off, it would be a waste not to take it. Qiu didn't like to eat metals of this level because they weren't very effective. He wanted to eat metals that could be used to refine source-grade divine weapons. Soon, Qiu dug a huge tunnel that extended all the way up. In less than half an hour, The black star iron was dug through. Nestle, dark divine gold. There's so much dark divine gold here. Suddenly, Qiu shouted excitedly. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Dark divine gold was a top-grade metal that could be used to refine source-grade divine weapons. Could there be one here? They quickly passed through the tunnel and saw a strange metal. This metal was too dark. It was darker than darkness. There was no light at all. Lu Ming stretched out his finger. His finger was like a spear gleam, piercing the black metal. However, it only left a shallow dent on the black metal. It's really dark divine gold. Qiu, dig it all out. Lu Ming said excitedly. A metal that could be used to refine source-grade divine weapons was definitely precious. Since they had encountered it, they couldn't miss it. Leave it to me, Qiu shouted excitedly. He opened his mouth and began to dig. He started to dig along the edge of the dark divine gold. The edge of the dark divine gold was black star iron. It would be much faster to dig like this. As Qiu dug, they found that there was an astonishing amount of dark divine gold here. It took them a few hours to dig out all the dark divine gold in this area. There were at least a few 100 million caddies. Refining in source-grade divine weapon required about a few 100,000 caddies of dark divine gold. There was at least enough to refine 1,000 source-grade divine weapons. Chapter 4885. Refining a source-grade divine weapon required about a few 100,000 kilograms of divine darkness gold. The main reason was that the divine darkness gold was too heavy. A fist-sized lump weighed 50 to 60,000 kilograms. A few 100,000 kilograms of divine darkness gold was actually not that big. Lu Ming put away the dark divine gold. When he returned to the Heaven Exterminating Army's camp, he could hand it over to the blacksmithing masters of the Heaven Exterminating Army to refine. Of course, the Heaven Exterminating Army would compensate them accordingly. Unfortunately, there was no time. Under such a large meridian, it seemed that there was not only a large number of chaos gems and divine herbs, but also a large number of precious metals. Unfortunately, digging for metals was too time-consuming. Even with Qiu, they did not have that much time. After digging out the divine darkness gold, it was the rock behind. Lu Ming and the others worked together. After a few hours, they dug through the rock and entered a stone chamber. This is not the top of the mountain, but inside the mountain. It seems that this is an underground secret chamber. Gu Mo observed for a while and speculated. There's a door. Let's go. Lu Ming said. At the side of the secret chamber, there was a stone door. It opened with a gentle push. Behind the stone door was a secret passage. After passing through the secret passage, they soon arrived at another secret chamber. This secret chamber was very big. It was like a great hall, and there were several stone doors around it. They casually opened a stone door and walked in. They found that it was also a stone chamber. This seems to be a refining room, Dandan said. He was proficient in rune formations and was quite experienced in refining. He could tell from the traces at the scene. There were some stone platforms at the scene. It did look like a refining room, but unfortunately, there was nothing left behind. Then, they left the stone chamber and opened another stone door. Behind the stone door was another stone chamber. However, this stone chamber looked like a bedroom. There was a stone bed, a stone bench, and a stone table. On the stone bench, there were a few stone cups and a stone pot. It should be used to pour tea and wine. It smells so good. There seems to be wine in this stone pot. Dandan's nose twitched. There is indeed wine. What a rich essence. This wine is amazing. Lu Ming walked towards the stone table. They had long since sensed that rich energy was constantly gushing out of the stone pot, containing a terrifying amount of life essence. When the lid was opened, everyone was stunned. There was indeed wine in the stone pot. However, it wasn't much. No, it wasn't that there wasn't much, it was very little. To be exact, there was only one drop. A single drop of wine actually emitted such rich energy and life essence. This was somewhat inconceivable. What was even more inconceivable was that this drop of wine should have been left behind from the previous era. After so many years, this wine had actually been preserved without evaporating or corroding. This was somewhat unimaginable. I feel that this drop of wine contains a terrifying amount of energy. It's countless times denser than the sky jade ginseng's energy. Xian Yanqing said, "That's right. This wine should be concocted from some peerless divine medicine. The existence of the previous era is truly extravagant." Dandan said as he licked his lips, as if he couldn't wait to swallow this drop of wine. This drop of wine contains a terrifying amount of energy. A normal person wouldn't be able to endure it and would explode, Bone Devil coldly said. His words were like a bucket of cold water that had been poured over Dandan's head. "Can we only watch?" Dandan said unhappily. "Lu Ming might be the only one who can give it a try." "Lu Ming, do you want to give it a try? I feel that if you can refine this drop of wine, your cultivation will probably quickly break through to the 9th level of the Divine Lord realm." Bone Devil said. Lu Ming also appeared tempted. Just by sensing it, he could sense that this drop of wine contained a terrifying amount of energy. When he closed his eyes, it was like there was a great desolate era crystal mountain before him. If he could really refine this drop of wine, he might really be able to break through. "I'll try first." In the end, Lu Ming decided to give it a try. Of course, Lu Ming would not directly swallow this drop of wine. Instead, he used his forbidden energy to strip off a sliver of the wine, about 1% of the drop. After all, this was a drop of wine left behind from the previous era. Who knew if it was poisonous? Or something else, so it was best to be careful. Lu Ming swallowed this 1% of the drop of wine. Lu Ming swallowed it. Boom. The moment this sliver of wine entered Lu Ming's body, it was like a star had exploded, turning into surging energy that spread through Lu Ming's body. What astonishing energy! Lu Ming was stunned. He frantically circulated his forbidden energy to absorb and refine this energy. To Lu Ming's delight, this drop of wine did not contain any poison or other harmful elements. It was pure energy that was extremely pure and easy to absorb and refine. In just over 10 minutes, Lu Ming had refined all the energy. Lu Ming felt that his cultivation level had improved by a notch. What astonishing energy! It's at least the energy of 50 to 60 million desolate crystals, or even more. Refining this drop of wine might really be able to help me break through. After some thought, Lu Ming continued. This time, he stripped off 1/10 of the drop of wine and swallowed it. Extremely dense energy spread through his body, rapidly transforming into Lu Ming's forbidden energy. Soon, Lu Ming also absorbed and refined 1/10 of the drop of wine. Like before, he did not discover anything strange. Let's refine it together and break through to the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm in one go. Lu Ming's eyes brightened. He opened his mouth and sucked. All the wine in the stone pot flew into Lu Ming's mouth. Boom, boom, boom. This drop of wine constantly exploded in Lu Ming's body, wildly attacking him. Lu Ming's body even began to swell. However, Lu Ming was no longer the same as before. Ever since he comprehended the 3000th ancient secret technique, his forbidden energy had undergone a qualitative change. It was incomparably strong and tenacious. The forbidden energy circulated, crazily absorbing and refining the wine drop's energy. Lu Ming's cultivation also crazily rose. Soon he reached the peak of the 8th level of the Divine Master Realm and began to attack the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm. A few hours later, boom. There seemed to be a booming sound coming from Lu Ming's body. It was as if he had broken through a certain hurdle. Lu Ming's aura soared and soared to another level. He had broken through to the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm. Xian Yanqing, Qiu Yu, Ling Yue, Dandan, and the others were all overjoyed. Now that Lu Ming had broken through to the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm, his fighting strength would definitely soar. How many opponents below Origin would there be? After another hour, Lu Ming withdrew his aura and ended his cultivation. I didn't expect that I would really break through, and so quickly, Lu Ming sighed inwardly. It was too fast. In less than half a day, he had broken through. Compared to refining the primal crystal, this was many times faster. Even with Dandan's great heavenly refining origin formation, refining the primal crystal would take at least a year. However, refining this drop of wine would take less than half a day. The difference was too great. This drop of wine was simply a supreme treasure. Chapter 4886. What kind of wine is this? Isn't it too terrifying? Dandan circled around Lu Ming, looking at him intently. Haven't you ever thought that the person who drank the wine is the most terrifying? Xian Yanqing said. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. That's right. The person who drank the wine, the owner of the wine, was the most terrifying. Just one drop was enough for Lu Ming to break through from the 8th level Divine Master Realm to the 9th level Divine Master Realm. This was equivalent to 5 or 6 billion desolate crystals. And the owner of the wine had obviously drunk the entire pot. How extravagant was that? What kind of cultivation did the owner of the wine have? It was definitely far beyond their imagination. Come, let's go up, Lu Ming said with confidence in his eyes. Feeling the surging power in his body, Lu Ming was full of confidence. Now, even if he encountered the Immortal, Lu Ming was confident that he could put up a fight. Even if he encountered a large group of the primordial light race, he would not be afraid. Given his current combat strength, he could compete for treasures with the other races. We can't give up on this stone cup and stone pot. Put it away. Dandan hurriedly put away the stone cup and stone pot on the stone table. The stone cup and stone pot were definitely not simple to match with such a precious wine. After putting it away, they walked up a flight of stairs. As for the other secret rooms, Guimo and the others had already searched them while Lu Ming was refining the wine. They did not find anything special. The stairs slanted upwards. When they reached the end of the stairs, they arrived at a courtyard. They had already reached the top of the mountain. They were in a palace at the top of the mountain. I remember that the top-grade source-grade divine armor is in that direction. Dandan pointed to the east. Let's go. Lu Ming and the group dashed toward the east at lightning speed. The top-grade source-grade divine armor was too precious. It was their main target. Suddenly, a violent roar rang out. An extremely sharp force tore at Lu Ming and the others. It was a silver-eyed Een corpse. It's a good opportunity to test my strength. Lu Ming soared into the sky. His figure was as fast as lightning as he thrust out his war god spear, colliding with the sharp claws of the silver-eyed Een corpse. When the war god spear collided with the silver-eyed Een corpse's claws, the claws were shattered into pieces. The war god spear didn't stop as it pierced through the silver-eyed Een corpse's palm. The blue firestone flames enveloped the silver-eyed Een corpse's entire arm. The silver-eyed Een corpse roared and retreated. But Lu Ming was like a shadow, his war god spear thrusting out like lightning. Although the silver-eyed Een corpse tried its best to resist, after 10 moves, Lu Ming had pierced several holes in his body. In the end, the war god's spear stirred up his body, causing it to explode. Amazing! Dandan was full of praise. Lu Ming also showed a satisfied expression. The silver-eyed Een corpse's combat strength was equivalent to the Guangxin royal envoy, but it was killed by Lu Ming in just 10 moves. Although the war god spear was infused with the blue firestone, which could suppress the silver-eyed Een corpse, Lu Ming didn't use his ultimate moves like the heaven-breaking form and the great desolation form. It was obvious that Lu Ming's combat strength was much stronger than the silver-eyed Een corpse's. This gave them a boost of confidence. They continued to head east. When they were close to the east, boom, 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 boom. Colorful lights flashed and roars could be heard from time to time. There is still a chaotic battle over there. Lu Ming and the others looked into the distance and found that a chaotic battle was taking place at the intersection of the second mountain peak and this mountain peak. The second mountain peak was also connected to the core mountain peak by a chain. At one end of the chain, Wuxia, the powerhouses of the primordial light race, and some silver-eyed Een corpses were engaged in a chaotic battle. It wasn't hard to guess that the joint attack array carriers at the second mountain peak had all been taken by various parties. Then, the various parties wanted to enter the core mountain peak through the chain, so a chaotic battle broke out at the entrance of the chain. This is a good chance. Lu Ming and the others were delighted. They thought that the primordial light race, Immortal, and the others had already reached the core mountain peak and taken away the silver-grade divine weapons and armors. They didn't expect that they would still be fighting at the entrance of the second mountain peak. This gave them a chance. How could they miss such an opportunity? Lu Ming and the others sped up and rushed to the east. A corner of the palace there had been shattered, and a top-grade silver-grade divine weapon and armor had flown out. A few balls of light could still be seen in the shattered area. Inside each ball of light was a piece of armor. It was exactly the same as the top-grade silver-grade divine weapon and armor from before. At least it looked the same. Lu Ming and the others were discovered by the primordial light race and Ye Immortal as they approached. Roar, roar, roar. 5 silver-eyed corpses were engaged in a chaotic battle with the people from the primordial light tribe. At this moment, they also discovered Lu Ming and the rest. All of them roared and abandoned the people from the primordial light tribe. Instead, they charged toward the mountain peak where Lu Ming and the rest were. The 5 silver-eyed corpses ran past the chain at an extremely fast speed. Once the silver-eyed corpses left, the primordial light race suddenly had one less opponent. They only had Ye Immortal left. 2 21-man joint attack arrays will continue to deal with Ye Immortal. The rest of you follow us. Yuan Baji shouted. He led 2 Guangxin royal envoys and several joint attack arrays along the chain and rushed toward the mountain peak where Lu Ming and the others were. Yuan Baji did the same. He led his experts and followed closely behind Yuan Baji. Ye Immortal's eyes were cold. He attacked with all his might, wanting to rush toward the mountain peak where Lu Ming and the others were. Unfortunately, he was attacked by 2 21-man joint attack arrays. The 2 21-man joint attack arrays turned into a saber and a sword. Their attack power was astonishing. Ye Immortal could only protect himself. It was extremely difficult for him to rush over. Let's speed up. Lu Ming shouted. They increased their speed to the maximum and rushed into the shattered palace before the silver-eyed corpses and the primordial light race arrived. So many! Once they rushed into the shattered hall, Lu Ming and the group's hearts trembled and their eyes widened involuntarily. There were 11 balls of light. There were actually 11 balls of light. Each ball of light contained a piece of armor. All of them were exactly the same as the top-notch soul-grade divine weapon that had flown out earlier. Their heartbeats involuntarily quickened. Could it be that these 11 armors were all top-notch soul-grade divine armors? If that was true, they would really be rich. Lu Ming and the others did not have time to rejoice. They rushed forward and each of them targeted a ball of light and started to attack. Lu Ming grabbed one of the balls of light. The defensive power of this cluster of light was much stronger than that of the cluster of light that enveloped the carrier of the combined attack array. Lu Ming actually did not manage to break it. Even Lu Ming could not break it, let alone the others. Naturally, they could not break it. Break it, Dandan shouted. He had already transformed into his original form. His shell glowed as he used the array to break the ball of light. Chapter 4887. Xian Yanqing and the others also used various methods to break the light balls. Swoosh, 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 Lu Ming began to use the heaven-breaking style. His 5 fingers were like 5 long spears, constantly stabbing the light balls. After using the heaven-breaking style, Lu Ming's power was too strong. The light balls finally couldn't withstand it and exploded with a bang. The armor inside the light balls was also caught by Lu Ming. After injecting the forbidden power into the armor and scanning it with his spiritual sense, Lu Ming already knew the level of the armor. His eyes were extremely bright. It was really a top-notch source-level armor. According to the level, it was on the same level as the life-spirit divine weapon of the heavenly court, like the war god spear. I'm rich, I'm really rich. The value of a defensive armor of the same level was many times higher than that of an offensive weapon like the war god spear. Back then, among the 18 life-spirit divine weapons of the heavenly court, there wasn't a single defensive divine weapon. It could be seen that defensive divine weapons of this level were too precious and too rare. In fact, before the creatures of the Forbidden Lands appeared, all the major forces in the universe added together didn't have many defensive divine weapons of this level. However, this was the Purple Heaven Cave. In the previous era of the Eldritch continent, only the top forces could occupy it. It was normal for a powerful force that claimed to have immortals to be in charge of it to have many armors of this level. There were probably many treasures more precious than this. However, there was no time to refine it now. With a thought, he put the armor into the eldritch ring. Then, Lu Ming pounced on the second light ball. Originally, there were 11 light balls here. Lu Ming and the other 10 people divided 10 light balls. There was still one left. Lu Ming's current target was the remaining light ball. Swoosh, 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 Lu Ming continued to use the heaven-breaking style. His fingers were like spears, constantly stabbing the light balls. After a while, this light ball was also broken by Lu Ming. The armor inside fell into Lu Ming's hands. Upon sensing it, Lu Ming knew that this was also a top-notch source-grade armor. It seemed that the armors in the balls of light were all top-notch source-grade divine armors. Roar, roar, roar. The 5 silver-eyed Yin corpses continued to roar as they closed in on Lu Ming's group. Their sharp claws continued to swipe out, and a terrifying force tore at Lu Ming's group. Boom! Lu Ming used the Great Desolation style and slapped out with his palm. A large piece of land formed in front of the 5 silver-eyed Yin corpses. The claws of the 5 silver-eyed Yin corpses tore at the continent, creating large cracks. Finally, the continent exploded with a bang. Of course, this was because Lu Ming had not used his full strength. He did not want to use his full strength for the time being. If he used his full strength now, how could he trick the people of the Primordial Light Clan? Once Yuan Baji, Yuan Jiuji, and the others saw Lu Ming using his full strength, would they still dare to charge over? How could they be as energetic as they were now? Lu Ming blocked in front of Xian Yanqing and the others. The divine battle spear kept thrusting out, and spear light pierced towards the silver-eyed Yin corpses. At the same time, Lu Ming waved his left hand and shot out rays of blue firestones. Lu Ming had attached a forbidden energy to the blue firestones. When the blue firestones got close to the silver-eyed Yin corpses, the forbidden energy on them exploded, and the blue firestones were blasted into powder. The blue firestone powder enveloped the 5 silver-eyed Yin corpses. At this moment, the bone demon finally broke through the ball of light and put away the armor inside. After putting away the armor, the bone demon did not stop and charged towards the 5 silver-eyed Yin corpses. In the process, he also threw out a large amount of blue firestones. Of course, it was impossible to completely block the 5 silver-eyed Yin corpses with just the blue firestones. After all, the silver-eyed Yin corpses had a strong resistance to the blue firestones. The black smoke on the silver-eyed Yin corpses surged like flames and rushed past the blue firestones. However, they were met with the terrifying attacks of Lu Ming and the Bone Demon. Lu Ming and the Bone Demon's weapons were attached with blue firestones, which had a restraining effect on the silver-eyed Yin corpses. Boom, boom, boom. After a series of explosions, Lu Ming and the Bone Demon blocked the 5 silver-eyed Yin corpses. Lu Ming still did not use his full strength, and looked like he was going all out to block the 2 silver-eyed Yin corpses. The Bone Demon relied on his strong defense and blue firestones to block the 3 silver-eyed Yin corpses. Therefore, in the eyes of others, Lu Ming's battle strength was equivalent to a Guangxin imperial envoy, at most a little stronger. Behind them, Yuan Baji and Yuan Jiuji rushed over with their men. Attack from the other side. Kill them and take the armor. Yuan Baji shouted coldly. He planned to bypass the battlefield where Lu Ming, the Bone Demon, and the silver-eyed Yin corpses were fighting and directly attack Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, and the others. They would kill Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, and the others first and take the armor. This move was ruthless. However, Lu Ming had expected it. He did not move and waited for the people of the Yuan Guang clan to come closer before he suddenly attacked. Bush, bush, bush. Lu Ming unleashed his full strength. The war god's spear shook and turned into a dazzling spear light, stabbing at the silver-eyed Yin corpses. Lu Ming's battle strength was too terrifying. The spear light broke through the silver-eyed Yin corpses' defenses and pierced holes in their bodies. The terrifying destructive power was like countless tiny spear lights that exploded in the silver-eyed Yin corpses' bodies, almost tearing them apart. After the silver-eyed Yin corpses were repelled, Lu Ming struck out with his palm. A huge continent was formed and pressed down on the people of the Yuan Guang clan from above. It covered the sky and the sun, and its aura was violent. The people of the Yuan Guang clan were shocked and their hearts trembled. The power was too terrifying. Why is it so terrifying? Attack with your full strength. Block this attack. Yuan Jioji and Yuan Baji roared and attacked with their full strength. The 3 Guangqin royal envoys under their command also attacked with all their might, attacking the void. There were others who hurriedly set up arrays to block the attack. Boom! The continent pressed down and collided with the attacks of the Yuan Guang clan. There was an earth-shattering explosion. At the moment of collision, the people of the Yuan Guang clan were shocked. Many of them spat out blood. Lu Ming roared and used the sky-breaking form. He stabbed out with his spear at one of the Guangqin imperial envoys. This was Lu Ming's full-strength attack. The Yuan Guang clan member had just blocked Lu Ming's attack and had not recovered yet. The main reason was that he had been careless. He did not expect Lu Ming's attack to be so terrifying that it could put so many of them under such great pressure. It would be strange if he could recover after blocking Lu Ming's desolation form in a hurry. How could he block Lu Ming's sky-breaking form in such a state? The head of the Guangqin imperial envoys was pierced by the spear light and exploded. His soul was also destroyed in an instant.